If you have already watched this introductory information, you can skip ahead no more than 10 minutes. Hello, welcome. I am predicting that Vice President Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis due to a bird strike into Busch Stadium. In the area code 314, it will be a burning bush, as described in Exodus 3:14, on November 27, 2024. She will be replaced by Michelle Obama, and then Barack Obama will replace Michelle. I am predicting that singer-songwriter Paul Simon will die on November 8th, 2024. I am predicting that former President Jimmy Carter will die on November 17th. It is predicted that President Trump will die from a heart attack on December 12th, 2024. It is also predicted that Trump's heart attack will be triggered by a directed energy weapon that will target Trump through Bluetooth technology. The components inside the pointy thing that Trump took will facilitate this, and it is believed that when Barack Obama is sitting next to Trump at Jimmy Carter's funeral, Obama will obtain Trump's Bluetooth MAC address, which will be used to target Trump with a directed energy weapon. I am predicting that dirty bombs will explode in Manhattan, New York City, and there will be a large-scale evacuation on December 16th. I am predicting that Israel will bomb Iran on December 17th. Israel will nuke and completely destroy Damascus, Syria on December 26th, 2024. It is predicted that after Kamala Harris's death in a plane crash, Joe Biden will appoint Michelle Obama as his vice president. On December 17th, the Democrat Party will use their electoral votes to make Michelle Obama the president-elect. It is predicted that on either December 22nd or 25th, Joe Biden will suffer a stroke. It is predicted that on December 26th, 2024, Joe Biden will step down and Vice President Michelle Obama will become the 47th president. It is predicted that on December 26th, Michelle Obama will appoint Barack Obama as the 51st vice president. On January 12th, 2025, Michelle Obama will step down and Barack Obama will become the 48th president. His public inauguration ceremony will be on January 20th, 2025. It is predicted that on April 20th, 2025, there will be an outbreak of monkeypox or Marburg disease or both. April 20th will be a symbolic beginning to a new pandemic. June 8th, 2025, the true Feast of Pentecost in the calendar that watches for new moons, will be the day of the resurrection rapture event. It is predicted that on June 9th, the day after the rapture, the key will open the bottomless pit and fallen angels will cross over into the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the fifth trumpet judgment that is described in Revelation chapter 9, when the demonic realm collides with the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to demons pretending to be aliens, and it is possible that June 9th will be the day Pope Francis will announce that aliens have arrived and have made him the ambassador for the world. This will immediately give Pope Francis, the Antichrist, supreme power over governments of the world. At some point, there will be a massive Mary apparition that will deceive the masses, because all Mary apparitions in history have been demons pretending to be Mary. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to a zombie pandemic and the masses becoming demonically possessed that will be facilitated through the thing, which is the mark of the Antichrist and 5G frequencies. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the coming genocide politicide in America. It is predicted that on August 6th, 2025, the historic barge that has been stuck on the rocks of the Niagara River for over 100 years will finally break free and crash over Niagara Falls. The reason for this is that Niagara Falls is Noah's flood symbolism, and the barge was involved in the most dramatic rescue in the history of Niagara Falls, symbolic of Noah's Ark. Niagara in the native language means straight, narrow way, and Niagara's Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the CN Tower in downtown Toronto, because Toronto and its tower are symbolic of the Tower of Babel. In a game of horseshoes, the object is to aim the horseshoe and throw it at the metal stick, which is why the Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the metal stick that is the CN Tower. God is communicating that as testament for those who will live in the 1,000 years of Christ's reign on earth, the geography of North America will, as a result of a massive earthquake, be divided by a body of water from the Great Lakes to the Mississippi Delta. This destruction will be judgment on America and Canada for attempting to divide God's land, Israel. When this happens, the water in the Great Lakes will spill out over southern Ontario and Toronto. I am predicting that a solar flare will erupt on the surface of the sun and send a coronal mass ejection that will hit Earth on August 13th, 2025, which will knock out America's power grid and will lead to food shortages. The hit of the coronal mass ejection, predicted for August 13th, that will knock out the power grid will also knock many planes out of the sky. I am predicting that on August 23rd, 2025, there will be a catastrophic asteroid hit of Earth, which will trigger the eruption of Yellowstone volcano and will cause the volcano in the Canary Islands to collapse into the Atlantic Ocean and send a mega tsunami towards the east coast. The asteroid will also trigger a mega landslide on Hawaii Island that will trigger a mega tsunami that will hit the west coast. It will also trigger the collapse of the Hoover Dam, which will cause a water panic in California, and many other devastating earthquakes. The day of the Lord, the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ, Judgment Day, will be on the Day of Atonement, October 1st, 2025. The date that this video is posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived, and more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction that is from God is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Make a note right now of these alternative platforms that you can find me on in case you can't find me later. All right, it is now after October 30th, and like I will explain, we expected signs on this date to reveal adding 5 days. In this Game 5, it was in fact the last game of the World Series as it was thought it might be. And anyway, that confirmed the 5 days, and that got us to this date, November 4th. And the signs on this date confirmed all of the analysis, which will be explained in the Jimmy Carter videos. This was the day of the death of the king of music, Quincy Jones. And that revealed adding 13 days to get the date. It is predicted that Jimmy Carter will die on November 17th. It is amazing, but it will be explained in the Jimmy Carter videos. If you have already watched this introductory information regarding this explanation for October 30th and Paul Simon, you can skip ahead to the 43-minute mark. All right, welcome. This brief introduction here, the purpose of this diagram here is to explain how October 30th, 2024 will be a step. This is being recorded on October 25th. October 30th will be a step in the trail of signs that is leading to the predicted date of Paul Simon's death. The singer-songwriter Paul Simon is predicted to die on November 8th. And October 30th is an important, extremely important step along the way. I will explain what I mean. The playoffs, or rather the World Series between the New York Yankees and Los Angeles Dodgers will begin tonight. It was predicted before the playoffs that these two teams would be in the World Series. The purpose of this prediction, or rather video, is to explain how October 30th was known ahead of time to be pointed to by God as being related to the trail of signs leading to the predicted death of singer-songwriter Paul Simon. There are a number of videos that are on this channel that are predicting this date, October 30th, explaining all of the evidence that God used to point ahead of time to October 30th, which is overwhelming, regarding the death of Paul Simon. It was learned last night that it is, or will be, a step in the trail of signs. All of the analysis is 100% correct. I guarantee it. There will be a prophetic sign on October 30th that will be relevant to Paul Simon. And I am more than confident that it will be a baseball sign. That is because, and it will be a New York Yankees sign, and that is because Paul Simon is known to be an avid New York Yankees baseball fan. But more than that, God has used Paul Simon in New York Yankees baseball signs. For example, this date right here, the opening day of the 1999 season, when Paul Simon sang before the game began in center field of Yankee Stadium, Mrs. Robinson. That is because one of the lyrics in Mrs. Robinson is about Joe DiMaggio, who had just died prior to the opening of the season. Okay, and Paul Simon is now predicted to die on November 8th, which will be exactly 1,335 weeks after this date. This is extremely prophetic. This is it's a period of time that is 1,335 days, that is at the end of the last chapter of the book of Daniel, that regards the end and the return of Lord Jesus Christ, the end of the age. Okay? And that's what we're talking about. The timing of Paul Simon's death is a major prophetic sign, or will be, because he is symbolism for the brief period of silence that John heard in heaven that preceded the judgments of destruction. Paul Simon's first big hit that launched his career was Sound of Silence. In Revelation chapter 8:1, the sound of silence was heard before the judgment destruction, and that's why Paul Simon will die on the date E11:8, which hints at Revelation 8:1. Furthermore, this date outside of the U.S. is written as 8:11. And also, God used the dates 8:10 and 8:11, August 10th and 11th this year, for precisely the same reason, as a step in the trail of signs to this date, the date it's predicted that Paul Simon will die. Okay, now I want to make this video as brief as possible because I just want to make this video an explanation for how October 30th is a step in the trail to November 8th. Again, I'm going to place this introduction at the beginning of videos that will be talking about October 30th. Okay, and the analysis is 100% correct. And what you need to know is this is how it works. The skeptic will say, oh, you just, pick a bunch of dates and you're finally going to get right sooner or later. That's ridiculous, first of all. Paul Simon is only 83. It could be another 10 years before he dies. And second of all, it's not every date, as you can see, And furthermore, when the prediction comes to pass, it will prove what I'm saying. And the reasons for how I know ahead of time will prove it. But also, I'm also predicting that Jimmy Carter will die 4 days before the death of Paul Simon. And to get the deaths of these two men right, that's beyond anything comprehensible, really. Okay? And Jimmy Carter will die in the fourth state, which is why the 4 days. One reason. We want to keep this brief, okay? It's also 2 + 2 days. He has 22 grandchildren. He is symbolism for Methuselah in the Bible, who was the grandfather of Noah. Methuselah died at the timing of the flood beginning, the beginning of the judgment, and the name Methuselah means when he dies, destruction. Both of these men are symbolic of the timing of the beginning of judgment, destruction of America. Following the sound of silence in Revelation 8:1 and the rest of the chapter of chapter 8 begins the 7 trumpet judgments, which is why Paul Simon's last album released was 7 Psalms, and it's exactly 77 weeks before it is predicted that Paul Simon will die. The release of 7 Psalms is released 77 weeks exactly to the date Paul Simon is predicted to die, and his death will symbolize the sound of silence that will be followed by the 7 trumpet judgments, hence the name 7 Psalms. And by the way, he was instructed in a dream to make 7 Psalms. He was told the name of it and everything, as he explains. This date of Paul Simon's death will be exactly 7 months after this 7 weeks connection to the date of the rapture on Pentecost in the true calendar that watches for new moons. This will be symbolic of Bridge Over Troubled Water, the rapture. His big song, Bridge Over Troubled Water, is symbolic of the rapture. In the Bible, the Israelites took the promised land, which is symbolic of taking heaven, the promised land, after a symbolic 3 sets of 7, and furthermore, the 3 sets of 7 was really a 7 and a 7 and a 7. I mean, a 7 and a 7 times 7, or a 7 and a 7, which is exactly what's displayed here, illustrated. through God's signs. Okay. The album Seven Psalms was released when Paul Simon was 81 years old, which is further confirmation that this Seven Psalms album hints at the seven trumpet judgments following Revelation 8:1 that describes the brief period of silence that was observed in heaven, which is again why the song that launched Paul Simon's career is Sound of Silence. And so here we have the timing of Paul Simon's death and Jimmy Carter's death communicating from God the timing of the beginning of the judgment destruction of specifically America, because God is primarily focused on America. By the way, that's why two of Paul Simon's big hits were the songs America and American Tune, the latter of which Paul Simon sang at Jimmy Carter's pre-inaugural ball. And again, in God's Signs, which is explained more in the Carter videos, Jimmy Carter is symbolism for Methuselah. Methuselah in the Bible died at the timing of the flood judgment, and the name Methuselah means when he dies, destruction. Jimmy Carter will die on this 11-4 date, which hints at 11 times 4 equals 44, and therefore hints at the 44th president. Furthermore, it will be the 4 times 4th anniversary of the election of the 44th president. And it will also be the prophetic anniversary of the beginning of the 444-day Iran hostage crisis, which was the last 444 days of Jimmy Carter's presidency. Jimmy Carter will also die in the 4th state, and this is why 4 days from the death of Methuselah, Jimmy Carter, which means when he dies, destruction, will be the death of Paul Simon, who will point to the sound of silence that directly precedes the 7 trumpet judgments. This is what this is. This period of sound of silence, this symbolism, is this 11 plus 8 days. From the date that Paul Simon is predicted to die, 11/8, it is 11 plus 8 days to the date it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash into a baseball stadium as she is homeward bound to her mansion in Los Angeles the day before Thanksgiving. And through her death will be the rise of the Antichrist through her replacement. The 44th president will ultimately become the president again because of her death. Okay, and so this is astounding because this 11 plus 8 days hints at Revelation 8:1. From the death of the singer who sang Sound of Silence, which points to Revelation 8:1 and the sound of silence in heaven, it is 11 plus 8 days to the beginning of the destruction. This is exactly what God will be communicating with the death of Paul Simon. This brief period of sound of silence before the judgment destruction begins, which will begin with the death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash. Seven Psalms was released 530 days, 53. The reciprocal of it is 0.0188, which is the number God frequently uses, 188, to hint at H188, the 188th word in Strong's Hebrew Bible Concordance, which is the word that means woe, exclamation mark, used in the context of extreme judgment from God. This connects to this date here, which is the predicted date of the prophetic expected, predicted in advance sign involving the New York Yankees player Aaron Judge, as in 188 used in the context of judgment. His number is 99, and in the Bible, the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment. That's why prophetically his name is Judge. All right? This will all be pointing to, as explained in the must-watch video I titled, Harris Will Crash into Ballpark. Her plane will crash into a baseball stadium on November 27th. Simon will die on November 8th equals Obama's first pitch. Okay, in Bible prophecy, or rather in God's signs, pitchers on the pitching mound are symbolic of the Antichrist on the Temple Mount. Obama wore jersey number 5 in his prophetic first pitch that he threw, which I explain in this video. All right? Paul Simon is associated with the number 5 in God's signs. There's so many examples. His name, Paul Simon, is equal to 500 in Hebrew gematria, and the Antichrist's word in Greek is the 500th word in the concordance, mentioned 5 times. Paul Simon released this 7 Psalms album exactly 500 months after the prophetic reunion concert in Central Park that attracted 500,000 people. With Art Garfunkel, he made 5 albums, the 5th of which won 5 Grammys. Paul Simon is mansion symbolism. He sings about the mansion in Graceland, which sits on 14 acres, which is the 5th semi-prime number. And ultimately, this points to the White House mansion that is on 5 acres. Paul Simon sang Graceland in the White House mansion on the date 410, which is at 14, the 5th semi-prime number. And on, as I explained in other videos. And that's why this date that is related to Paul Simon is a game 5. And it is 5 days before the predicted death of Jimmy Carter. Paul Simon sang at Jimmy Carter's inauguration ball. Okay? This date is exactly 5 weeks after this Paul Simon sign, which was expected in advance, explained in other videos, the indictment of the mayor of New York. And that was the day after Paul Simon gave a private concert in New York City, a rare thing for him to do at the age of 82. Okay, and on. Okay. Ultimately, this is leading to 5th Trumpet Day, the day after the rapture, June 9th, which will be when the demonic realm collides with the earthly realm, and there will be a symbolic beginning to a mass demonic possession, which will be facilitated by 5G frequencies. Music is frequencies. A phrase in the Bible says that Satan is the prince of the power of the air. Frequencies are air. Frequencies are in the air. They travel through the air. Music, 5G frequencies, will trigger the components that are inside people who have taken the mark of the Antichrist, the pointy thing, which will then trigger delta brain waves and mass demonic possession, which is symbolized, or rather the movie The Shining is about demonic possession, and the first lyric of Paul Simon's song Graceland is the Mississippi Delta, as in delta brainwaves, was shining like a national guitar, and Paul Simon dated Shelley Duvall and is widely known to have broken up with her at the airport, as in portals through which demons will cross over into the earthly realm, before she left for the UK to film the movie The Shining, and on, as I explained in other videos. So that's the relevance of the number 5, okay? Paul Simon is predicted to die on the day of the prophetic funeral of Jimmy Carter, and as I explained in other videos, Barack Obama will be sitting next to Trump in the pew, lined up, and Barack Obama will obtain Trump's Bluetooth MAC address that people have because Trump took the thing, and people who have taken the thing, the components inside the thing that are in the people, engender a Bluetooth MAC address. This will be used to Trump's Bluetooth MAC address will be used to target Trump with a directed energy weapon. And it's 54 days because of this 5 and 4 days connection, but also the 54th Massachusetts Regiment, which God has used and demonstrated in his signs to be symbolic of oppressive minority laws. And the 54th Massachusetts Regiment, the first black regiment, as in the first black president, were not paid the equivalent amount the white northern soldiers were paid And this was official policy from Washington, D.C., and it was $13 because 13 symbolizes the mark of the Antichrist because it is described in the 13th chapter of the Bible, but also the number 13 in the Bible is symbolic of the Antichrist. And anyway, the Antichrist will use digital programmable currencies, which is why the amount of pay was the story of the 54th Massachusetts Regiment, the first Civil War black regiment, and the pay that they weren't received, and that's why digital programmable currency by the Antichrist in the Antichrist system will be used to program the currency to restrict the buying and selling of food that will be rationed to only those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist. I'm trying to do this quickly, okay? This was a prophetic baseball sign. Otani, this unprecedented player who's from Japan, God is using Japan for Japanese animation symbolism because the genre of film is obsessed with spiritual possession, and we are talking about mass demonic possession, the culture with their silly, nonsensical characters are symbolic of demons. It's rooted in their pagan spiritualist religion. And anyway, this was the day that Otani, this unprecedented player from Japan, playing for the Los Angeles Angels, as in fallen angels, Los Angeles in God's sign, since it fallen angels, he was the first player to ever hit 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases in the season. And this is exactly 50 days to November 8th. Okay, but it is also connected. The Trail of Signs connects this date to October 30th. And the point that I'm going at here is that because, okay, so he also hit 51 home runs and 51 stolen bases in this day, and 5 + 1 days gets us to this date, which is then exactly 5 weeks to this date, this Game 5 sign that we are expecting, okay? And so, in other words, this sign connects to October 30th, and what I am doing is, as in this video, explaining that October 30th is a step. And you need to watch the rest of this video because this is how it works. If God were to, okay, here is the thing. If God were to just tap a person on the shoulder and say, tell the world that such and such is going to happen on such and such date, it would provide nothing for us. It is through the interconnected signs of it is through these connections through the prophetic signs. And by the way, none of the prophetic signs can be properly, fully understood without their context and connections with the other prophetic signs, which is only being explained on this channel. And it is through these connected trails of signs that God is able to tell stories and reveal extremely important knowledge and information that everyone needs to know. That's why when the prediction comes to pass, the wise person will recognize that every minute of every video on this channel must be watched. That is the point. Now, I'm just going to finish this up here, explaining how October 30th was a step, the date that this video is being posted proves that I am producing this video ahead of time. I just slipped there because I take these things so for granted in my mind that I use the past tense, okay? Now, this date, let's see, what else should we get at here? Now, I'm predicting that on this date, something will happen regarding Aaron Judge, and it will point to the World Series in 1977, which is explained in the Obama first pitch video that I just mentioned. Now, the thing too, though, is that this date is exactly 99 weeks after this Aaron Judge sign, which, by the way, was expected in advance. Well, rather, I expected a sign related to the coming prediction of the dirty bomb explosion in Manhattan on this date. And then the player for New York City, number 99, Aaron Judge, signed his prophetic 9-year contract for $360 million. Now, this was known ahead of time. One reason being is that it was exactly 9 times 9 years after the bombings in Pearl Harbor. Okay? So that's why 9 times 9 years later, we get number 99, 9-year contract. Also 81, which is 9 times 9, is a 9/11 number because 9 divided by 11 is 0.8181 into infinity, and the flight that hit the first tower had 81 passengers. 360 million hints at 3 6s, and 666, the number of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. And also 36 is 6 times 6 and 2 times 18, which is 6 plus 6 plus 6. And the 36th triangular number, which in a triangle of numbers, the last number of the 36th row is 666. And 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way to 36 equals 666. And this is then followed with 36 days, but this connection is 60 plus 0.00 plus 60.00 plus 60.00% of a year. Okay. And so that gets us to this date in which it is predicted that Aaron Judge, number 99, will give us a prophetic sign, which will be very prophetic, but the more to this is explained in the first pitch video, okay, that explains much more regarding what's going on here. This is just an introduction video. Now, this date, by the way, is also exactly 19,000 days after the day that Jackie Robinson died, and this is a World Series that will be pointing to this rivalry between the New York Yankees and Los Angeles Dodgers, which included Jackie Robinson. But this is relevant because of Paul Simon's song, Mrs. Robinson. As I mentioned here, he sang in the baseball stadium in Yankee Stadium, but also Michelle Robinson, which is the prophetic reason for the song Mrs. Robinson by Paul Simon, who God is using for prophetic signs, because Michelle Robinson will appoint Barack Obama as her vice president, and then she will step down. This will all be after Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash into a baseball stadium. Okay, so, and he wore 42, the number that symbolizes the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. Okay, and let's see, anything else here? We got 45 days to the day of Paul Simon's concert in New York City. This 1,305 number is about the number 45 because it follows the 1,290 number, a difference of 45 days in that prophecy. And also 45 is symbolic of the end, as is this number. 45, the reciprocal of it is 0.02222 into infinity, and which hints at the second coming. But also 0.022 hints at the mark of the Antichrist, because the mark of the Antichrist is symbolized by the number 22 in the book of Ezekiel chapter 9, and the 45 is the 9th triangular number. In Ezekiel chapter 9, the mark of the Antichrist would have been a Tav letter, the last and 22nd letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and the mark of the Antichrist is described in the last book of the Bible, which is the 22nd out of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. One last thing here, too, is that this date here, the day that Paul Simon sang in New York City, was exactly 32,200 days after Joe DiMaggio crashed into player number 4, Goose Goslin. This gives us a number 4 and 5 because Joe DiMaggio wore number 5. And that is ultimately hinting at this connection here, which gets us this 5 weeks connection to this date, and then 5 days to this date, and then so this is 45 right here, there's a 45 right here, this ends at 45, but also Joe DiMaggio gives us a 5, okay, and this is game 5, and then 5 days, okay, and it's also 5 days after this prophetic baseball sign right here. Okay, now the reason why this is prophetic is because they collided in center field. Paul Simon sang in center field, okay, and this caused Joe DiMaggio to be knocked unconscious, and that's why this is famous. Okay, but it was with Goose Goslin, another Hall of Famer, and Goose hints at a bird, and Kamala Harris is predicted to die in a plane crash into a baseball stadium in center field after a bird strike. The reason why 32,200 days is because Joe DiMaggio is associated with Marilyn Monroe, and Marilyn Monroe is known for having died at a young age. And she is known for her 2 movies in which the theme is immortality. The first lie told at the beginning of the age is that Eve told by the serpent in the garden that she surely shall not die, which is symbolized by Genesis 3:22, hence the 32,200 days exact connection. Okay, because all of this is leading to the coming lie at the end of the age, which will be the same lie as the lie at the beginning of the age in Genesis 3:22, which is that the promise of immortality without God, promised by the coming demons pretending to be aliens. Okay, and so we'll just leave it at that, I believe. Now, Paul Simon is predicted to die on 11/8, which is 11 plus 8 days before the predicted death of Kamala Harris in a baseball stadium, which will be symbolized by Homeward Bound. She will be homeward bound to her $5 million mansion next to the I-5, and Paul Simon, who is associated with the number 5, had a big hit, Homeward Bound, okay? And that's amazing. But it is also 19 days, and ultimately this points to the 1919 Chicago Black Sox, hence the first pitch that Obama threw for the Chicago White Sox when in the year in 2005, when they won the World Series for the first time since 1919. But also this 19,000 days in turn connects with 9 days and then 19 days to the day that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash, and then she will be replaced by Mrs. Michelle Robinson, hence Mrs. Robinson, and about Joe DiMaggio, who was number 5, and who crashed in center field with Goose Goslin. Okay, so I think you get the idea here. October 30th is a step in the trail of signs. Now, make sure that you watch the rest of this video. As I said, this is just an introduction, and as I explained, the reason for all of this and the reason why October 30th will be a step in the trail of signs is so that you can learn all of the stories and therefore thereby the information and extremely important knowledge that God wants everyone to know. This is the purpose of all of this elaborate matrix of signs. It is for him to tell these stories that are only being told on this channel. Make sure you watch the rest of this video. All right, to emphasize once more, this video was produced prior to October 30th. Even what I am saying is prior to October 30th. And it is known now that October 30th will not be the day that Paul Simon will die, but instead will be an important step in the trail of signs that is leading to the predicted date of Paul Simon's death. So do not be confused when you are watching the rest of this video when there is mention of connections to October 30th, implying that Paul Simon will die on October 30th. You now know how it works, okay? And so don't be confused in the rest of this video when we talk about October 30th in regards to the death of Paul Simon. It is a step, and all of the analysis for October 30th is 100% correct. That will be proven when the prediction comes to pass on November 8th. Okay, a couple other things that I forgot here. This Paul Simon related sign, the indictment of the mayor of New York, which ended up with the raid of the Gracie Mansion, which is a Graceland Mansion, and Paul Simon and all that. This is 44 days. We're ultimately talking about the rise of the 44th president through the plane crash. And 44 days is also 2 times 22 days. And through the 9/11 events, God pointed to George Washington, who was born on the date 2/22, which is why, for example, the World Health Organization officially declared the CVD disease begins with a pan, ends with a demic, exactly 222 months after 9/11 on March 11th, 2020. And another thing I forgot, if there is a Game 7, it will be 6 days, which is 2 times 3 days, and Barack Obama, the basketball president, wore jersey number 23 in high school. It'll be that Paul Simon will die 6 days later, if there is a Game 7. And that, in turn, will be exactly 6 weeks after this prophetic Dodgers sign in Dodger Stadium, and this, if there is a Game 7, will be in Dodger Stadium. And this was the day that Trump dodged another debate because that was after the other debate, which was rigged. And there was a prophetic fire right beside Dodger Stadium that was seen from the seats in the stadium during the game, and on, as I explained in another video. But it was at an old courthouse, which is symbolic of the coming shoplifted referendum and all of that, right? But also this 6 weeks is 42 days, and player number 42, Jackie Robinson, played his career with the Los Angeles Dodgers. That's also why this will be relevant. If there is a Game 7, there could be something more that will point back to Jackie Robinson, and if so, it will be a hint at Michelle Robinson, who will bring appoint Barack Obama as her vice president, and then step down and make Barack Obama the president. By the way, what I really meant to say regarding the significance of the fire of the old courthouse next to the Dodger Stadium, it's communicating the upcoming constitutional crisis. All right, welcome to this truly astounding video that will explain a portion of God's amazing big picture of signs, patterns, and connections. I will be talking about the signs that occurred yesterday on September 17th and how it all fits together, so many other pieces of the puzzle in God's big picture of signs. And these signs are also leading to the predictions that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash into St. Louis, into a baseball stadium on November 27th, 2024, and that Paul Simon, the singer-songwriter, will die on October 30th, 2024, and Jimmy Carter will die on November 4th, 2024. There's many more predictions, but that's what this video will be focused on. All right, welcome. This video is so amazing. It's so mind-blowing, if you will, okay? And the thing is that this video was produced in a couple of segments. What I mean is that with time, God's big picture of signs, patterns, and connections becomes clearer, and more understanding as to what God is doing comes and is revealed as more pieces of the puzzle come together. And it is now more clear what God was doing with September 17th and these prophetic signs that I'll be talking about, which is the indictment of P. Diddy and the explosion of the pagers in Lebanon. That might not sound like very much to you. It is a lot, and it's very important. Stay with me. All right? So what I'm going to do is make this first bit of this video an explanation from the present time, which is October 20th, with a lot more insight as to what is going on. After I'm done explaining this introduction, I'll play the part of the video that was produced prior to now in mid-September, and because it's still important and there's a lot of information that I'm just not going to repeat here right now, but also I can't remember it all. There's very important information that still needs to be learned after this brief introduction. Now, September 17th, P. Diddy was arrested, all right, on the 16th, and then was read his charges in court on the 17th. So God did this on purpose to make this a two-date sign. But it's not really that important that we understand that right at this second. But back in March, on March 25th, the world was shocked, the American culture at least was shocked to learn of the raid, the surprise raid of the FBI on P. Diddy's 2 mansions on each of the coasts. All right? And if you don't know who P. Diddy is, I don't fault you for that. I barely, I'm familiar with his music. I am barely familiar with his music myself. That's because I'm not really, P. Diddy's popular. What I need to tell you is that this is important. God uses people in culture in all kinds of aspects to bring in essentially the entire American culture. Whatever you can think of, probably God has brought it into his big picture of signs. And I believe he does this for symbolically being able to say, look, I provided signs no matter what you're interested in. So, okay. So anyway, if you are interested in mainstream hip-hop, after the year 2000, I believe, or maybe the 90s, late 90s. Then you'd be familiar with P. Diddy, okay? But regardless, basically everyone in America is familiar with P. Diddy, at least who he is. I've heard the name before, all right? And so he's huge. It can't be understated. This is a celebrity of celebrities, if you will, all right, in that world. Okay, so this is why it was shocking that he had his 2 mansions raided by the FBI. Now, the theme here is mansions. God is using this theme of mansions to ultimately point to the White House mansion, in which the Antichrist will occupy. The 44th president, Barack Obama, and this mansion theme is also pointing to the temple on the Temple Mount, in which Lord Jesus Christ will occupy in the millennial age, the 1,000 years of peace. And the big picture, God's beautiful big picture of signs incorporates the king of rock and roll's mansion, Graceland. It's very important in God's signs. This is symbolism for so much. You know what? I'm going to stop explaining the basics here. We will be here for an hour if I continue to do this. So, but I have to do something here to get you on board if you don't know anything yet. So, so Paul Simon, his biggest solo album is titled Graceland, and the song Graceland is about his travel to the Graceland mansion. He sang this song in the White House this year on April 10th, in the White House mansion. All right, and like I am saying, this is all leading to the 44th president, Antichrist, returning to the White House mansion as the president, the 48th president, after it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash, who will then is predicted to be replaced with Michelle Obama, and then it is predicted that Joe Biden will have a stroke. Michelle Obama, it's predicted that the electors in the shoplifted referendum will choose Michelle Obama on December 17th, making her also not only the vice president, but the president-elect. And then Joe Biden is predicted to step down on December 26th, and she will become the 47th president. And then she is predicted to step down on January 12th, after appointing Barack Obama her vice president. And then when she steps down, Barack Obama will become the 48th president, and he will be inaugurated as such on January 20th. Okay, so that's why we have 4 times 4 days between the raid of P. Diddy's mansions and this event that Paul Simon attended, the state dinner for the Prime Minister of Japan at the White House mansion, where he sang to the people gathered the song Graceland, which is about a mansion. That date, in turn, is exactly 4 times 40 days, which rhymes with 4 times 4 days. And this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination, and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. All right, and so this one also way in which God provides second witnesses for us frequently is through pairing certain numbers together. It's very simple to do a second witness through such a thing. And the numbers that he pairs together are 44 and 23, because the 44th president is the basketball president who wore jersey number 23. There's more reasons than just that. But anyway, this 4 times 40 days is also 23% of a calendar year. And that's a second witness to this. It's also a second witness, this 23%, to this 4 times 4 days, and then this 44 days. All right, so 4 times 40 days gets us to this date. This is the center of this diagram and video, which is the day that P. Diddy was indicted. Well, actually, this was the day that he was read his charges. Both of these dates are prophetic in God's signs here. Okay, now the date 9/17, these are two numbers that God pairs together. Speaking of pairing numbers together, that's because the Antichrist was president from 09 until 17. That's also why the date 9/17 in the US is Constitution Day, because the Antichrist was the unconstitutional president. He was not born in America. And also there will be there will be a constitutional crisis that the Supreme Court will rule on when Michelle Obama appoints him her vice president. Okay, so that's why also this all happened on this day. And furthermore, what was the sign? It was a courtroom sign, which further confirms what I just said. The reason why this happened on this date is because it is Constitution Day. And we are talking about the end. We have a year left until the return of Lord Jesus Christ. This is, if you will, the last Constitution Day. And so this is a major sign, and it was a courtroom sign because of what I just said, because it'll be a major constitutional crisis when she appoints Barack Obama as her vice president. But somehow they'll get away with it because that's what the signs indicate. And so, all right. Now, Paul Simon, who is in God's signs part of this theme of mansion, is predicted to die 44 days after this date, which lines up with all of this, including his singing at the White House mansion. Okay? This is amazing. So Paul Simon is predicted to die on October 30th, and that's 44 days, and then 4 times 40 days after he sang at the White House mansion. Astounding. Now, there is this theme of the number 45 in God's signs, and this is a big part of this video, because the thing about P. Diddy, which I discovered after this prophetic sign here, was his video named Victory. I went through the Wikipedia page for P. Diddy and his works, and what stood out to me was the song named Victory, and then I discovered that he made a big deal of this song, making an elaborate 8-minute video. It's basically a mini movie. And it's 8 minutes long. It's just a couple of seconds, or 1 second maybe, under 8 minutes, which hints at 4 + 4 and the 44th president. All right, and it's known for being that long. It's known for being long, and the length of it is essentially 4 + 4 minutes. Now, in this video, and the Victory, just the title of it stood out because of it sounding prophetic, because that's the theme of life, this victory over and overcoming evil and this world and the sinful nature. All right? And so, in other words, the victorious will be God's faithful in the end. All right? So that's why I was interested in this. But it turns out this, and I should add that it was the Holy Spirit. You could also easily say that made me want to look further into this song Victory. But sure enough, it was correct, this hunch, if you will, because at the time that I discovered the Victory video and looked more into it, I realized, or rather learned, that Dennis Hopper, the famous actor, stars in this video. He did it pro bono as well. And the video is apocalyptic. It's actually an homage to the movie Running Man. P. Diddy is this Running Man character, but it is apocalyptic, and it's starring Dennis Hopper as the evil totalitarian overlord, Antichrist-like figure. All right? And so, and the Bible is about overcoming and victory over the Antichrist, ultimately. So the interesting thing, though, is that Dennis Hopper starred in the movie Apocalypse Now. Okay, so here we go. Could God be pointing to the movie Apocalypse Now? Well, yes, he was. That's exactly what's going on here with why this victory video with P. Diddy and Dennis Hopper. Now, Apocalypse Now was the famous, of course, movie directed by Francis Ford Coppola in 1979. And at the time, it was this era of what was called New Hollywood. And these directors, these baby boomer generation type directors, well, there was a new attitude anyway. I don't know if Francis Ford Coppola is technically a baby boomer, but it was this trend that happened in the baby boomer summer season of cultural revolution, if you will. And there was this new trend in movie making, and the studios were allowing their directors to spend whatever they wanted, these creative geniuses, because at the time, Coppola had already produced The Godfather. And so they were giving him a blank check. This was what was called New Hollywood. And so there was, a lot of talk in the popular culture about how much money Coppola was spending and how long it was taking to produce this Apocalypse Now movie. I'm going off track, actually. I'm definitely going off track, or I'm going into too much detail, which is explained in other videos anyway. So the point is, though, that it cost $45 million, and it was famous for costing $45 million. All right, that's the bottom line. And the 45th anniversary of this movie that cost $45 million, the 45th anniversary of its release date, was August 15th, 2024. All right, now I knew that this date would be extremely important since 2016 because of the alignment in the stars, and also knowing that it would be a couple of months before the end. Turns out that there's an extra year. We have the 7 years fulfilled from 2017 to 2024, and God is communicating an 8th year after the 7 years. But that's another subject also. Anyway, the point is that I need to just let you know that I knew about this date ahead of time, and then it was amazing to learn that this was actually the 45th anniversary of Apocalypse Now that cost $45 million to make. Okay, so that was realized before the date 4/5, which hints at 45, April 5th. All of what I just said was realized before the date 4/5, and then on 4/5, which symbolizes 45, P. Diddy posted a video, a link to his victory video, and that was it. That's all he posted on his, I think it was his Instagram social media account. And the fact that he posted this victory video was headline news in it was on the Drudge page, for example. So it was major news in certain news circles. And he posted this in defiance, of course. He was posting this song and video named Victory in defiance to all of these allegations and charges being amassed against him. Okay, so he was being egoistic. But the point is, what's jaw-dropping is that he posted this video on the date 4/5 that hints at 45. And I already knew that God was using this victory video to point to the 45th anniversary of Apocalypse Now. And then P. Diddy posts the video on the date 4/5, okay? So in other words, it's 100% confirmation from the Lord that we are definitely on the right track here, all right? This is not part of our imagination. This is real. This is from God. This is very important, this 45th anniversary of Apocalypse Now. Now, this 45th anniversary of Apocalypse Now is 4 weeks and 5 days, or was 4 weeks and 5 days, before the P. Diddy indictment. More 4-5. Also, the P. Diddy indictment was 45% of a year after he posted the video Victory on the media account. Okay? It's also actually 45.08%. And if you have the eyes to see, that 08 hints at how the video is 8 minutes long. But it's essentially exactly 45% is also the point here. From the date 4-5 to the indictment of P. Diddy. This is mind-boggling, all right? All right. Now, the thing is, too, that, well, why don't we do this first, and then I'll get back, I'll circle around to the Lebanon pagers. This, in turn, is 4 + 5 days to these mansion signs. This was, okay, so P. Diddy was indicted, and his mansions were raided, and then the mayor of New York City was indicted on the 25th, just like how P. Diddy was indicted on the 16th, but then was in the courtroom, I guess you could say, indicted on the 17th, whereas the mayor was indicted on the 25th, and then his mansion was raided on the 26th. The name of the mayor of New York's mansion is Gracie Mansion. And by the way, the center of the scandal is alleged corruption with the nation of Turkey regarding the embassy in Manhattan. And that was a clue that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash the day before Turkey Day. All right? That's another story that I explain in other videos. I just thought I'd throw that in here, though. Well, anyway, Gracie Mansion, it's funny, the name of that should be a capital M, because that's the name. It's a proper name. Gracie Mansion is the name of the mayor of New York's mansion. Just like the White House mansion is the name of the residence of presidents. Well, the residence of mayors of New York is Gracie Mansion. But that hints at, of course, Graceland Mansion. And again, we connect to Graceland here, as I just explained. And also, this was in New York City, the raid of his Gracie Mansion. And on this same day, on the Jimmy Kimmel show, Jimmy Kimmel and Prince Harry went through a haunted mansion in New York City. This was also the day that People.com published their exclusive interview with the granddaughter of the King of Rock and Roll about her completion of her mother's memoir about her mother's life and the Graceland Mansion. Okay, and yeah. Okay. This date here revealed Paul Simon dying the day before Halloween. Kamala Harris will die the day before Thanksgiving. Paul Simon is predicted to die the day before Halloween, and that's because the name of the mayor, Eric Adams, hints at the fictional mansion of the Adams family. The Adams family is about their lives inside their mansion, and his name is Eric Adams, which gives us this Halloween theme, and this is not the only Halloween theme here. The granddaughter of Elvis, she's known for starring in a movie named The Lodge, which is thematically and the script and the theme. There's themes in the movie that come from inspiration comes from an Alfred Hitchcock movie. One of his most famous, maybe even the most recognized one, Rebecca, that was nominated for 11 Oscars. And that's about a haunted mansion, okay? And the woman that wrote the screenplay, she was nominated. She became the first person to be nominated for 2 best screenplays in the same year. And her name is Joan Harrison, which hints at Kamala Harris. Well, anyway, the thing is that also Paul Simon And by the way, on the 24th, Paul Simon was in New York City for a private concert. And the day after was the day that the mayor was indicted. And Paul Simon doesn't live in New York anymore, and he's 82 or 83 now, and he doesn't do concerts very often. And so that wasn't known ahead of time, but we were expecting something regarding Paul Simon ahead of time. And that's what it was. Okay, and now Paul Simon dated Shelley Duvall, who starred in The Shining, and it is widely known that he broke up with her at the airport before she flew to the UK to do the filming. And the filming is about essentially a mansion. It's about a hotel, which is part of this mansion theme, the haunted Shining Hotel, the haunted hotel in the movie The Shining. And she died on the date 7/11, exactly 7 times 11 days before this date here. And in Genesis 7:11, the flood judgment began, and it says in that verse, Genesis 7:11, that it began on the 17th day of the second month, which is why it's 2 times 17 days to the date it is predicted that Paul Simon will die. Now, there's much more to say regarding the Shining connections and Shelley Duvall, but I'll leave it at that for this video. So, and that because it's in other videos. And when the prediction comes to pass, the wise person will recognize the need to watch every minute of every video on this channel. Okay, so now let's come back to this here. The video Victory, P. Diddy's video, begins with him in a plane wreckage, which is why all of this ultimately connects to Kamala Harris's plane crash, which, by the way, is predicted to be 7 times 4 days after the death of Paul Simon. 7 and 4 hint at the date 7/4, which symbolizes America. And Paul Simon is known for his songs America and American Tune. And there's more to that story as well, and that's explained in other videos too. But that's why that's relevant too. Now, so P. Diddy's video begins with him. It's apocalyptic. It's it's night, and he's waking up at nighttime, ready to start the day. And he's in the fuselage of an old wrecked plane, but a commercial one, a big plane. But it's in the downtown streets of some city. Okay, that's because Kamala Harris's plane will crash into the downtown of St. Louis, into the baseball stadium. All right, and which is located right in downtown St. Louis, right in the smack center of the downtown of St. Louis is where the St. Louis baseball stadium is located. And in the video, P. Diddy has a pager. I think this video was produced in the late 90s. So he has a pager, okay? And the pager says, "Get out." And then a couple seconds after he rushes out of the wrecked plane, it explodes. Kamala Harris's plane is predicted to explode. And so that's amazing. But what's amazing is that was, like I've been explaining, this video Victory was recognized to be a prophetic sign from God prior to this date. And on this same day in which P. Diddy was indicted was the Lebanon pagers explosions. Surely you've heard of that, where the IDF, the Israeli secret intelligence agencies somehow put explosives inside a supply of pagers to the Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon. Genius, right? And anyway, that was that day. This is that date, okay? It's astounding, the connection with pagers. Now, the latter part of this video that I said would come after this introduction will explain the very important reason for the pagers. But one thing about this is that it is symbolism for being tracked. So recently, actually, too, in the news, it's been said that most likely the IDF is targeting the terrorists in Lebanon through what you might call artificial intelligence, tracking them in various means. But this is all hinting at how the Antichrist system will track people and enforce through this tracking the mark of the Antichrist, which is the thing. You know what I'm talking about. The pointy thing that you can't talk about is the thing. And the thing is no pun intended, Elvis Presley, which is what's been drawn into this with this mansion symbolism, the most famous mansion in the U.S., except, I guess, the White House. The king as an Antichrist king's mansion. And by the way, the mansion is located in Little Egypt, in Memphis, Tennessee, which is named after Memphis, Egypt, because in the Bible, Egypt and the king of Egypt is symbolism for the Antichrist system and the Antichrist. Well, the thing industry, and I don't mean that I don't mean that as a pun. The thing industry, you know what I'm talking about, right? The industry that produces things would not be what it is today without Elvis. Because Elvis popularized with the baby boomer generation things. The baby boomer generation came to accept things because of Elvis, because of him taking a thing publicly in front of cameras right before he went on to the Ed Sullivan Show. This is this historic moment where he took the thing for the thing that starts with a P and ends with an oleo, that thing, in the 1950s. And had he not done that, it's widely said that history would have been different regarding the thing industry. Okay? So, in other words, Elvis is symbolism. In God's signs, God is using Elvis for this symbolism. All right? And that's why the connection to Elvis's mansion here and pagers, tracking people through technology. Okay, that's what's going on here. That's why also on the day that P. Diddy posted his video with him in an apocalyptic scenario with a message from the pager saying, get out, this is why he posted this video with this pager on this day, on the same day of these other signs, which was the release of the movie First Omen, which is part of this Omen franchise about the birth of the Antichrist. Also on this day was the 90-foot high statue unveiling of the monkey man, the god Hanuman in the Hindu religion, in Harris County. All right? And you know what I just realized too? Harris County is connected to Dallas, which God is using as symbolism for the American Evangelical Church, with the I-45. And on this day in Harris County, at the end of the I-45 from Dallas, is this monkey man. And that's because God is communicating in his signs the coming use of the thing to supposedly counter monkeypox. Begins with the P, ends with the demic. Begins with the pan, ends with the demic. Okay? And so it's also symbolic of false religion, and which is a big part of what's going on right now. It's not recognized as a religion, but it is. The left are in a political religious cult right now, in a trance. What we saw in the CVD days was purely religious, and that's another subject. But anyway, so I think this is good enough for this introduction here. The rest of this video, like I'm saying, is important, and it'll explain more regarding what's going on here. Now, I have to apologize. There will be some explanation for this date here, September 25th and 26th. But it was prior to September 25th and 26th, and it was believed that this would be the day that Paul Simon would die, etc. Okay, so just bear with that. You know, like I'm saying, the signs get clearer as the big picture unfolds. It ended up being all of the analysis was 100% correct. it, as I am explaining here, ended up being a step in the trail of signs, and when the prediction comes to pass, it will prove that. But it wasn't exactly clear prior to September 25th that it would only be a step in the trail. And actually, I think it was clear that prior to September 25th that it would be a step and not the actual date, but that wasn't the case before this video was originally made. One thing to add here too, which is fundamental, is that the reason why Paul Simon will be so very important and prophetic is related to this theme of Apocalypse Now. Because Paul Simon's first big hit with Garfunkel was Sound of Silence. And this hints at Revelation chapter 8, which John recorded as experiencing a sound of silence for, quote, about a half hour, unquote, in heaven before the 7 trumpet judgments, which are destruction, apocalypse. The word apocalypse in the main culture is associated with what can you say? The end of times and end of civilization kind of thing, destruction. So Apocalypse Now, God is communicating the beginning of the apocalypse through Paul Simon because he is symbolism for the sound of silence that preceded directly the apocalypse. Right? You follow that? It's brilliant. Paul Simon, though, will die 5 days before Jimmy Carter, and the other videos will explain the very, very important reason why Paul Simon is associated with the number 5. But on this theme of mansions, the White House mansion is 55,000 square feet. Paul Simon, in his song Graceland, speaks of him traveling down the highway to Graceland, and that highway he would have been traveling was the I-55, and the White House mansion is situated on 5 acres. Furthermore, the Graceland mansion is on 14 acres, and 14 is the 5th semi-prime number. Okay, so that's why Jimmy Carter will die 5 days later. Now, this 2 times 17 days, as I explained earlier, is a hint at the beginning of judgment in the book of Genesis, which is why we have this 2 times 17 days to the date it is predicted that Paul Simon will die, because he is symbolism for Apocalypse Now. In other words, the beginning of the apocalypse will happen now that Paul Simon has died. Well, likewise with Jimmy Carter. The other videos will explain how it is that Jimmy Carter is symbolism for Methuselah in the Bible, who died at the time of the flood judgment. At this time, in other words, this date, the 17th day of the 2nd month, was the day that Methuselah died. And the name Methuselah means when he dies, destruction. And so, just like Paul Simon, Jimmy Carter, when he dies, will be symbolism for the apocalypse now. Jimmy Carter is predicted to die 1 day before it is predicted there will be a second shoplifted referendum, which is, by the way, why symbolically there were 2 assassination attempts. The second assassination attempt is a prophetic sign pointing to the second shoplifted referendum. But it isn't a coincidence. And by the way, also, Jimmy Carter has been saying the reason why he is living is in order to vote against Trump. And so he will die the day before that. All right? So that's the huge connection here between Paul Simon, Jimmy Carter, their predicted deaths 5 days apart, and this theme of Apocalypse Now, because both of these men symbolize Apocalypse Now. Another thing that I forgot to mention is that P. Diddy is 54 years old. He was 54 years old at the time of this indictment. I don't know if he still is. And that is amazing confirmation for everything we have been talking about here with these connections. the 4 weeks, 5 days, the 45% of a year, this 4 plus 5 days here, 54 hints at this. A couple other things here that I failed to emphasize. We are talking about the 44th president returning to the White House mansion. The White House mansion is located at 4 times 400 Pennsylvania Avenue. Also, Paul Simon, who God is using for this mansion theme, has won 4 times 4 Grammy Awards. Okay, so that's why these 4 times 4 connections connecting with Paul Simon. He has won 4 times 4 Grammys, and he is ultimately pointing to the 44th president returning to the White House mansion. In other videos, we'll explain more regarding this theme, but I just wanted to add this because of the 4 times 4 and 44 connections here. Dennis Hopper starred in the movie Apocalypse Now. So that's the connection to Dennis Hopper. Now, how does that connect to Paul Simon? Well, it just so happens, and I just learned this today, because because it has been learned that Paul Simon will die on September 25th, and it was learned that, I was wondering how, because, okay, so this video was already made and it already is talking about September 25th. But as I said, it's a step in the trail, and I'm going to, in this video, speak of how it will be the day that Kamala Harris is predicted to die. But you won't be confused when I say that, because now you know what's going on. It's a step. She'll die 3 days later, and it'll be the day that it is predicted that Paul Simon will die. Now, so I had to think about it. Well, how does Paul Simon relate to P. Diddy? Well, then I thought, well, does Paul Simon relate to Dennis Hopper? Because God is using P. Diddy to point to Dennis Hopper and the movie Apocalypse Now. And sure enough, Paul Simon and Dennis Hopper come together in a Saturday Night Live episode. Paul Simon, in this episode in 1990, was promoting his 8th studio album. It's amazing. He was promoting his 8th album, and Dennis Hopper hosted this episode of Saturday Night Live, and Paul Simon was the guest musician, promoting his album that had just been released, his 8th album. Okay? His 4 plus 4th album, if you will. So, the first song on the album released is The Obvious Child. That's the name of the song, and there's a lyric in the song. It's the chorus, actually, and it is, it mentions a ballpark. The cross is in the ballpark. I don't know what Paul Simon is really talking about, but I do know that Kamala Harris is predicted to die in a baseball stadium, and that's actually related to Paul Simon because he sang Joe DiMaggio in his Mrs. Robinson song. There's a lyric about Joe DiMaggio. He sang Mrs. Robinson in Yankee Stadium just after Joe Robinson died. And Paul Simon is known for being an avid baseball fan. And, but I knew that Kamala Harris her plane would crash in a baseball stadium before I even knew that Paul Simon sang Mrs. Robinson in a baseball stadium. The reason why Mrs. Robinson is relevant is because Kamala Harris will be replaced by Mrs. Michelle Robinson Obama, her maiden name Robinson. That's why God is doing all of this. But she's going to die in a plane crash into a baseball stadium in St. Louis. But anyway, there's a lyric in Paul Simon's 4th plus 4th album, because the 44th president will replace Michelle Obama and become the president again. After Michelle Obama becomes the president, after she is appointed vice president, and Joe Biden then steps down. So, okay, so the 44th president is going to become the Antichrist and president again through this death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash into a baseball stadium. And that's why on the 4th+4th album, we have The Obvious Child, and which is a hint at the birth of the Antichrist. Speaking of which, we have the first omen sign right here, which is 45% of the year to this date. So there you go, birth of the, I didn't even know that till now, because the Omen series is about the birth of the Antichrist. Okay, and P. Diddy, on this day that he posted his victory video, was the day of the release of the movie First Omen, birth of the Antichrist. And then we have this connection now to Paul Simon with the Obvious Child song. The next single on the album was Proof, and that's a hint at the prediction that's going to prove everything that I'm saying. Okay, so that's how it all ties together. And also, Paul Simon, by the way, speaking of Saturday Night Live, sang with George Harrison of the Beatles, Paul Simon's song Homeward Bound. And that's because Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash as she is homeward bound to her mansion in Los Angeles. And the day that George Harrison and Paul Simon sang together, and they also sang Here Comes the Sun. Anyway, I believe she's going to crash at night, and then the sun will rise over her plane crash, and people will see it after the sun rises. That's so amazing, actually. So anyway, they sang on Saturday Night Live on November 20th, 1976, just after Jimmy Carter was elected. All right? And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Carter was elected 6 + 6 + 6 days earlier. I think it was the 2nd of November that year that the election was held. Well, anyway, Paul Simon also is connected to Jimmy Carter because just after this appearance with Homeward Bound, he sang American Tune to Jimmy Carter at the pre-inaugural ball, the day before his inauguration. So that's actually a big event as well. Well, anyway, the day that they sang on the Saturday Night Live, Homeward Bound, was exactly 145 months after the birth of Kamala Harris, the 49th vice president. And 145 is the 49th semi-prime number, which is a number only divisible by 2 other prime numbers, and God uses these in his signs. So that's some more confirmation for you. Now, also, in the promotion for the Saturday Night Live episode, Dennis Hopper and Paul Simon got together and did a commercial, a promotional thing for the network. And I don't understand the joke, and perhaps I'll play it for you, but in one of the promotions, they did too, Paul Simon lifts up a newspaper and says the date. This is to prove that this isn't an old episode. I don't get it. But anyway, Paul Simon reads a date. And that's from God, because God uses dates for signs. Paul Simon reads a date with him standing next to Dennis Hopper. It was 2 days before the episode aired. That was November 15th, 1976. And that day is exactly 405 months before this date, the 45th anniversary of the release of Apocalypse Now, starring Dennis Hopper, which is 4 weeks and 5 days to P. Diddy at the age of 54, which is at 45, and his indictment, which is 4 + 5 days to the day it is predicted that Jimmy Carter will die, and 8 days because the video Victory is 8 minutes long, and it's known for being a long video. It's like a little mini movie, and it's apocalyptic. And Paul Simon was promoting with Dennis Hopper his 8th studio album, which is why Paul Simon is predicted to die 8 days after this P. Diddy sign. Now, there's so much more to say. Trust me, you need to watch the entire video. Okay, before we continue with the video, because this is like an introduction to the video, I just want to run through some things that I wrote to a friend while discovering all of these. One thing to note is the 4+4th album is named Rhythm of the Saints, which is a clue that this is a prophetic sign. And the New Orleans Saints, by the way, won the 44th Super Bowl. Okay, and that's a prophetic sign, which I won't get into, but that's just a confirmation of the prophetic significance of the 4+4th album being named Rhythm of the Saints. Okay, and okay, so as I said, it was 405 months. I mentioned that to the 45th anniversary of Apocalypse Now. That cost $45 million to make and was also the anniversary of Victory Day, and we were talking about P. Diddy's video Victory. Okay, so let's see. The chorus contains "the cross is in the ballpark," okay, because Kamala Harris is going to die in a plane crash in a ballpark, the St. Louis Bush Stadium in the area code 314, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I think. And it'll be a burning bush in Exodus 3:14, a hint at that, and therefore, in other words, God. Okay. So what's very interesting, I forgot to mention here, is that Kamala Harris, her death at a plane crash predicted to be on September 28th, will be on a Saturday, and therefore I believe it'll be on a Saturday night because of these signs involving Saturday Night Live. All right, and so, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised even if the crash of Harris's occurs either before or during the Saturday Night Live episode, which claims to be broadcast live. And so if she dies in a plane crash during this Democrat comedian show, because that's what it is, it's a leftist show, and that's going to be quite something for the actors to continue with the show after the news, and I think that's what's going to happen. And furthermore, then we have the Weekend Update segment of Saturday Night Live, and as I'll explain, I think that's relevant too. And so let's see. So there's the second single from the album Rhythm of the Saints. In the video is Chevy Chase and Steve Martin. Speaking of P. Diddy using actors, he used Dennis Hopper and Danny DeVito. Paul Simon in his videos, this is actually the parallel, actually, come to think of it. Paul Simon used these actors in his video, Chevy Chase and Steve Martin, for this video for Proof, as in predictions prove it. And in that song is this lyric, Faith. Faith is an island in the setting sun. I think she'll die in a plane crash after the sunset. But proof, yes, proof is the bottom line for everyone. The 4+4th album is with its song was released on October 16th, 1990, exactly 6 times 6 times 6 weeks, which hints at the Antichrist, whose number is 666 in Bible prophecy, after the release of Graceland, in which the song Graceland begins with the lyric of Paul Simon describing his journey through the Mississippi Delta and how it was shining like a national guitar. This is because God is pointing to the movie The Shining, with starring Shelley Duvall, who Paul Simon was partners with for 2 years. And because The Shining is about telepathy, that's what The Shining refers to. And this is a hint from God in the prophetic signs to the coming mass demonic possession that will be triggered by delta brainwaves in the brains of people who have taken the mark of the Antichrist, the pointy thing that will have that put inside them these artificial intelligent components that will trigger the delta brainwaves, which will facilitate mass demonic possession. This is why one of the other songs on the album is You Can Call Me Al, which hints at AI, artificial intelligence. Okay? And I know for someone listening to this that's brand new to all of this, that's going to sound pretty crazy. I understand, but this is reality. It is crazy, and it is reality, and the prediction will prove everything I'm saying. And that is the purpose of this prediction. Proof from God. That's, believe me, I know far better than you the reason for this prediction. That's why God has given me the voice to give this prediction. I know the purpose of the prediction, and it is to prove what I am saying. But you'll see soon enough anyway that this is the case. But also the point is to prove that this pointy thing is the mark of the Antichrist. In its current form, it does not need additional technology to go with it, such as an additional form of or an additional form of false religious worship. And it doesn't need a new supposed age of dispensation after supposedly all quote-unquote Christians will be raptured. In fact, one of the main reasons why the vast majority of Christians, quote-unquote, have already taken the mark of the Antichrist is because it is in fact judgment for this particular doctrine. And the commonly held objections that people have based on their understanding of Bible prophecy are answered in the must-watch Snakebite video on this channel. But make no mistake, when the prediction comes to pass, it'll prove that these commonly held objections based on their understanding of Bible prophecy are incorrect. This connects Chevy Chase to P. Diddy, because P. Diddy is chased in the video. So Chevy Chase is in the videos You Can Call Me Al and Proof, to prove that the AI is what's responsible for the coming demonic possession that's going to happen. And the P. Diddy is chased in the video. That's the video, P. Diddy being chased. It's an homage to the Running Man movie, which I also explain later in this video, by the way. So make sure you keep watching the entire video. So Chevy Chase on Saturday Night Live, he started the tradition of the weekend update, okay? And it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash on the weekend, on a Saturday. It would be quite the weekend update on Saturday Night Live on September 28th. In the show, if the show is actually live. If it is, I would assume Harris would die before the show begins, or maybe during the show, like I just mentioned. Perhaps this is one of the reasons for the Saturday Night Live connections. In fact, I believe it is. Okay, I recall a music, let's see. This is a little bit on a tangent, but there's a famous performer, a musician named The Weeknd, and he actually did an episode on Saturday Night Live and appeared on The Weeknd segment of the show. Well, anyway, and in the movie Proof, there's a statue on the parade float that the two actors and Paul Simon are on, and that's symbolic of the judgment. There's a statue, and she's holding a scale. Okay, it's judgment from God. Let's see. So the date that The Weeknd was on Saturday Night Live was exactly 11 months before The Weeknd did the halftime show at the Super Bowl, which was Super Bowl 55, which hints at the fifth trumpet and 5G frequencies that will facilitate the mass demonic possession. Also, I call it the 5G Super Bowl, not only because of the Weeknd halftime show, which I explained in another video, but also Tom Brady, who won the Super Bowl, did a commercial for 5G. The Chiefs scored 9 points. That pairs with the 11 months. And the Chiefs are symbolic of the two antichrists described in Bible prophecy. There's more to the Chiefs that supports what I just said, but that's enough for now. That hints at Revelation 9:11, which is the verse that symbolizes the fifth trumpet and the 5G demonic possession in Revelation chapter 9. The 9 points were scored by 3 field goals by player number 7, Harrison, which hints at Kamala Harris. God is using this player. He is a professing Christian, and he has spoken boldly in the name of truth recently. God has been using this man. Anyway, this Super Bowl was exactly the 7th Super Prime weeks, 59 weeks, after his double doink, his prophetic double doink in Chicago, which hints at the double presidency, second presidency for the Antichrist, who is from Chicago, Barack Obama, the double doink. This 59 weeks is also 1 year, 1 month, and 16 days. The 1116th word in Strong's Hebrew Concordance is the word Bama, which means high place in Hebrew, and that's a hint at the double doink that was in a high place, as I say right here. And also the field goal posts in football, the 2 parallel posts, are symbolic of, in God's signs, the 2 towers on 9/11. Again, hence the 9 and the 11 connection here. Now, also, The Weeknd spent $7 million of his own money, which also confirms the 7th super prime number connection to the 3 field goals kicked by player number 7. Okay, so anyway, so this, The Weeknd Super Bowl with the by the way, the halftime show, he did his song, I Can't Feel My Face, and he had his performers on the field wrapped in bandages, not being able to see their faces, and they danced chaotically and then in choreographed, like in unison, and then chaotically, and then in unison, and then at the end they collapsed onto the field. This is because of the people that are going to collapse after being demonically possessed. Okay, the dancers walked around like zombies on the field. In other words, it was clearly communicating what is going to happen. Now, in Bible prophecy in Daniel chapter 7, we have this very important number of days, 1,335 days until the end. Okay, and that's why this 5G Super Bowl is 1,335 days to this date that is predicted to be the beginning, symbolic beginning of 5G Revelation 9/11 Artificial Intelligence Day. It'll be a symbolic beginning. I don't think that everyone's going to become demonically possessed on this day. Just something is going to happen that symbolically will begin that. Perhaps, probably aliens presenting themselves and being in the mainstream news. But that would be because demons are pretending to be aliens. That's why it's the beginning, symbolic beginning of the demonic realm colliding with the earthly realm. Well, anyway, that would be quite something, because that's 1,335 days after this very prophetic 5G Super Bowl, okay? 5th trumpet Super Bowl. Okay, so also, if we inclusive count, it's to the October 3rd is the predicted date of the rapture on the Feast of Trumpets, and 1,335 days in that Daniel chapter 9 prophecy talks about it being at the end and people waiting for it and being blessed for having waited till the end of the 1,335 days. And the rapture, okay? So that would be, if you don't know, when God's faithful will disappear and not go through the tribulation of the end times and the Antichrist and be with the Lord in his kingdom, and then return with the Lord at his second coming, which will be on December 26th, 2024. Did The Weeknd have trumpets in the halftime show? Okay. Simon performed, the last song that Simon performed when he promoted his 4th+4th album, Rhythm of the Saints, was Late in the Evening, which is the song known for its trumpets. And yeah. Okay. And so I think that's enough. Okay. So there you go. Following day after Harris's plane crash. The purpose of the predictions are to prove everything that I am saying in this video. And this is the purpose of these predictions that are from God. God has given me a voice through these predictions to prove the things that I will be saying in this video. That is the purpose. And believe me, I know far better than you the reason for the purpose for these predictions. All right, so let's begin with this write-up that I began here, writing to some friends of mine. After his arrest, P. Diddy was read his charges by a judge in a courtroom on September 17th, 2024. Okay, I'm going to assume that you know some things here, like, for example, who P. Diddy is. Okay, this was 4 weeks and 5 days after the 45th anniversary of the release of the movie Apocalypse Now that cost $45 million to produce. This was also 45% of a year after the date 4/5, when P. Diddy made a statement of defiance with his Instagram post of his apocalyptic music video named Victory. Okay, now let's begin just with some basics. This is the big thing about God's big picture of science. There's so much involved, and to introduce someone new to it, it's like you have to explain the entire thing, which is infinite. It's like trying to explain the universe in an hour, right? So there's like all kinds of things that you need to know already. For example, the significance of the number 45. What I'll do is attempt my best to keep this as minimally short as possible while still being able to explain things. Because we are talking about the product of 6 years now of following God's big picture of science from morning until night for more than full-time hours for 6 years, and God teaching and teaching and teaching and building and building and building thing upon thing upon thing. And so one of the things to learn here is the significance of the number 45. Now, the number 45 is hidden in it, the reciprocal number. So, okay, what's hidden in it is the reciprocal. What is hidden in the number 45 is the number 222. And that's because the reciprocal of the number 45 is 0.022 or 0.0222. The reason why that's significant and prophetic is that 0.022 hints at 220. Okay, now 220 is prophetic because it is 2 times 110. 110 is prophetic because it symbolizes the date 110 in the Hebrew calendar, which is the date of Jesus' first official entry into Jerusalem, his official arrival, triumphal entry as the King of the Jews on the date 110. Okay? The second coming would be symbolized by the second date 110. In other words, 2 times 110, in other words, 220. What's also interesting about 220 is that the 220th word in Strong's Greek Concordance is the word for rooster, which is symbolic of Peter. And Peter was named by Jesus, and Peter, the name in Greek, means rock, and in the Bible, a rock is symbolism for Jesus. Okay, so that's... So the number 45, in other words, is symbolic of the second coming. It is also symbolic of the second presidency of the Antichrist. Okay, so let's just begin this again. So this date, September 17th, was 4 weeks and 5 days, which hints at 45, obviously, after the 45th anniversary of the release of the movie Apocalypse Now that cost $45 million to produce. Obviously, God is using Apocalypse Now to communicate that the apocalypse is beginning now. Okay, this date was also, September 17th, was also 45% of a year after the date 4/5, which obviously hints at 45, and P. Diddy's statement of defiance with his Instagram post of his apocalypse music video, Victory. Okay, and again, this date, September 17th, is all about P. Diddy here, because this was the day that he was read his charges in a courtroom after being arrested. Okay, so September 17th is 4 plus 5 days, which hints at 45, before the predicted death of the 45th president. The number 45 is the 9th triangular number. $9 million of the $45 million spent to make Apocalypse Now was spent on promotion. 4 plus 5 days from P. Diddy's indictment to the 45th president's death is 9 days. The death of the 45th president will be a prophetic sign that will communicate that the apocalypse is beginning now. The Victory music video stars Dennis Hopper as the evil totalitarian leader of the world. This is symbolic of the Antichrist, who is the 44th president and who will become and who will come to power after the predicted death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash. The victory music video begins with a scene of P. Diddy waking up inside the wreckage of a jet plane on a downtown city street. The plane then explodes. Harris's plane is predicted to crash and explode on a downtown city street, St. Louis actually. P. Diddy's victory music video is known for being long and just a couple of seconds shy of exactly 8 minutes long. Harris is predicted to die in a plane crash explosion in a downtown area of a major city exactly 8 days after P. Diddy was read his charges in a courtroom after being arrested in a major city in the downtown. Okay, Dennis Hopper starred in the movie Apocalypse Now. Actor Martin Sheen played the president on the TV show The West Wing. On the 45th anniversary of Apocalypse Now, which cost $45 million to make, Martin Sheen was in the news for shaking hands with the president on the lawn of the White House, where the world could witness the moment the TV president shook hands with the president. Apocalypse Now is known for the iconic scene in which Martin Sheen unintentionally cut his hand while filming on a mirror and then went with it, spreading the blood, real blood, from his real hand around his body and the hotel room. Also, on the 45th anniversary of the Apocalypse Now movie that cost $45 million, it was news that the suppliers of the ketamine in things, injections that killed actor Matthew Perry, had been charged, just like P. Diddy was charged. These events together were symbolic for the president compelling things that poison people's blood. God pointed to a person's hand because of the prophecy regarding taking the mark of the Antichrist on the hand, which is symbolism for a person's actions. It is not literal. Okay, and the prediction being made in this video will prove it. I don't have time to get into these details and these arguments. It's symbolic, period. The prediction will prove it. That's the purpose of the prediction. Make no mistake, I know this more than you do. Okay, so the reason for the hand symbolism, though, is because Martin Sheen shook the hand of the president, and then Martin Sheen, of course, 45 years earlier, was the iconic scene of the movie is him cutting his hand unintentionally and then going with it in an improvised scene in which he spreads the blood around his body and the hotel room, which, of course, is all hinting at the things that poison the people's blood, because it was also the same day as the ketamine things sign involving Matthew Perry. Perry is also a name rooted in the pear tree, and Martin Sheen in The West Wing plays a president named Bartlett, and Bartlett is the most commonly sold type of pear, as in Perry, Matthew Perry. Okay, all right. So Danny DeVito also starred in P. Diddy's victory video along with Dennis Hopper. At the beginning of the video, DeVito is a reporter for Chase TV who says with great emphasis that contestant number 5, P. Diddy's character, was last week's winner and has been in the playoffs for 5 seasons and is, quote unquote, still running, unquote. 4 plus 5 days after a judge read P. Diddy's charges, Kamala Harris is predicted to crash in her plane near the I-55 highway in St. Louis. Contestant number 5 and 5 seasons hint at this. DeVito says these things simultaneously with overlaid images of P. Diddy inside the wreckage of an airplane in the streets, I'm assuming, of Los Angeles. It's an assumption, though, actually. And Harris's plane is predicted to crash in the streets of a major city near the I-55. The first scene in the video is of some sort of freaky sexual party that seems to involve drugs. This is precisely what P. Diddy is being charged for. Quote, freak out, unquote, sex parties that involved illegal drugs. Kamala Harris got her start in politics through doing sexual favors for the mayor of San Francisco. There were unwilling victims in P. Diddy's freak out sex parties, and this is a parallel with people unwilling to participate in the evil that the state will compel, such as taking the drug things, INJETIONS, pointy things. The Victory video is an homage to the movie The Running Man, the 1980s classic, if you were inclined to think it is a classic, sci-fi movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, The Running Man. The plot of The Running Man is applicable to our time. In the movie, there is a breakdown of society after an economic collapse. The mainstream media in the movie lies and brainwashes the public. The public is fooled into believing the good guys are the bad guys, and the bad guys and the state are the good guys, just like today. The public is brainwashed to the point of violence, just like the left has been brainwashed to the point of violence today. In the movie, Schwarzenegger and his group save the day by confronting the mainstream media's lies with alternative media, just like today. In The Running Man, the innocent are accused of being guilty, and they are on the run from the state's mercenaries. Also, in the beginning of the movie, Schwarzenegger's police helicopter pilot character is instructed to fire upon unarmed people in a food riot. When he refuses, he gets cancel cultured and his freedoms are taken away. This is a parallel with our time and the doctors who refuse to go along with the SHOTs. Schwarzenegger's character was ordered to SHOTs, the people in the food riot. That's because SHOTs and shootings are symbolic. The things that come out of guns and go into people are symbolic of the thing that comes out of things and goes into people. The release of the movie The Running Man on November 13th, 1987 is exactly 444 months before November 13th, 2024. It seems it can be expected there will be innocent dissidents on the run from the state and the 44th president on November 13th, 2024. God is using P. Diddy to point to the apocalyptic music video Victory. In defiance, P. Diddy posted his Victory music video on his Instagram account on the date 4/5. This was 45% of a year before a judge read P. Diddy's rights in a courtroom on September 17th. On September 17th, thousands of people in Lebanon were injured when their pager devices exploded. In the opening scene of the video, P. Diddy, I forgot to write, or didn't realize this until after I wrote this. The opening scene of the video, P. Diddy receives a text on his pager. He has a pager in the video. Okay. All right. And then, like I'm saying, he posted his video 45% of a year after the date 4/5. After posting his video on the date 4/5, 45% of a year later was the day of the P. Diddy courtroom prophetic sign on the same day as the explosions of pagers in Lebanon. Okay. In the opening scene also of the music video, P. Diddy escapes an explosion. So yes, right after he gets the text on the pager that in the video says, "Get out. Get out of this plane that he's in," and then he gets out, and right as he jumps out of it, it explodes. So we have a combination of a pager and an explosion in the video. And then 45% of a year after he posted the video on the date 4/5 was the day of the explosions in Lebanon from pagers. Okay. Also on the date 4/5, the day that P. Diddy posted his Victory music video, there was a rare 4.8 magnitude earthquake near Lebanon, New Jersey, that shook the downtown streets of New York City. Also on 4/5, the movies Monkey Man and First Omen were released. Dennis Hopper starred in P. Diddy's apocalyptic music video and in Apocalypse Now, the movie. On the 45th anniversary of Apocalypse Now, the movie that cost $45 million, God pointed to blood and the things through Martin Sheen and Matthew Perry, as I have explained. The movie Monkey Man and First Omen hint at the Antichrist and monkeypox, because the movie First Omen is the prequel to the movie Omen, the 1976 movie about the birth of the Antichrist. The Biden administration, and speaking of the birth, actually, there was the explosion in Lebanon, Beirut, on the birth date of the Antichrist. Wow, that actually connects here too. I didn't realize till just now. I'll show you in a second here. The Biden administration declared monkeypox to be a national health emergency on August 4th, 2022, the birthday of the Antichrist, which was exactly 2 years after the explosion in Beirut, Lebanon, on the birthday of the Antichrist. Which is why on that day, a couple, as in two people, that were married that day, and a third person, which hints at 2 and 3, the number that God uses to point to the Antichrist, the basketball president who wore jersey number 23 in high school, these 3 people, 2 and 3, died when lightning, which is what the name Barak means in Hebrew, struck them outside the White House. As is typical, this has officially become more than anticipated and too much for a write-up, and a diagram is necessary. So I'm going to get into that diagram now. All right, this is the date we are focused on here. Yesterday, September 17th, 2024, the day that P. Diddy was indicted and read his rights in a courtroom, and the day of the exploding pagers that injured thousands of people in Lebanon. And I believe, at least in the last report that I am aware of, 9 people died, and that's 4 plus 5. But regardless, so what I was just talking about is this connection right here, this 45.08%. This 0.8% would be a hint at the 8-minute long P. Diddy video that he posted on the state, which confirms the 8 days to the date of Harris's plane crash. Okay? And so again, in the video, the opening of the video is P. Diddy receiving a text on his pager to get out of the plane, and then it explodes, and then we have this 45% of a year after the state 4/5 when the pagers explode in Lebanon. Okay? Which was 4 years and 44 days after the 44th president's birthday and the explosion in Lebanon on August 4th, 2020. Now, what I also was talking about here is this 4 weeks and 5 days connection, which also hints at 45, to August 15th, which was the day that the 90-foot Monkey Man statue was unveiled. Oh, I forgot to add here that this was the date of the release of the movie Monkey Man and First Omen. Okay? That's why also 4 weeks and 5 days, which also hits at 45, was the unveiling of the 90-foot Monkey Man statue that was in or is in Harris County, which hints at Kamala Harris. This was the same day this was the 45th anniversary of the release of Apocalypse Now that cost $45 million to make. This date was known since this time, actually, since April or even late March. August 15th was known to be the important date, and that it was the 45th anniversary of Apocalypse Now. This was all discovered back in March when P. Diddy's homes were first raided. It inspired me to look into P. Diddy, which was when I discovered his victory video, which then was realized it was a prophetic sign, which then led to Dennis Hopper, who stars in Apocalypse Now, and then it was led to realize that this August 15th would be the 45th anniversary of this movie, and it cost $45 million to make, and on and on. But now we have all this confirmation, including this 4 weeks and 5 days, which is why this is even more stunning, because this date was known ahead of time because of the 45 significance of it. Oh, and also August 15th was the anniversary of Victory Day, when World War II was won in 1945. Oh, and that's victory, as in P. Diddy's video Victory. I actually hadn't realized that until just now. It's so obvious, right? Why didn't I realize that until just now? Maybe I did and I forgot. Because this is Victory Day, and we were talking about P. Diddy's Victory video. Oh, wow. Okay. So, also on this day, as I explained, Martin Sheen, who played the president on The West Wing, shook hands with the president on the White House lawn so that the world could see the moment. And that's because God was pointing to the hand that Martin Sheen cut in the movie Apocalypse Now, which points to the blood. And that's why on the same day, Matthew Perry was in the news, because of the people that supplied him with the things were arrested. All right. Now, in Los Angeles, near where Kamala Harris's home is. Okay, and that's why 4 plus 5 days later is the death of the 45th president, and and on and on. But okay, now what I want to explain next is this theme of monkeypox. That's what we're getting at here. God is confirming the significance of monkeypox, which is what is described in Revelation chapter 16. This is the real deal here, and it isn't. This is very serious. Monkeypox, although it doesn't seem like it right now, is very serious. God is communicating this in an overwhelming way. And that's the purpose of these predictions in this video. Now, to prove this some more, so Revelation 16 talks about the sores that people receive who have taken the mark of the Antichrist, which is the thing. Well, how can that happen? Well, the thing is, the pointy thing, has destroyed people's immunities. And so they're susceptible to getting these diseases that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten, and diseases are susceptible to be spread that otherwise wouldn't have been spread, because their immune systems have been decimated by the poison that they took in the mark of the Antichrist, which is the thing. But it was all prophesied. It's all spiritual judgment. It's in Revelation chapter 16, the sores. Okay? And so that's why, because the Pope is the first of the two Antichrists who enforce the mark of the Antichrist. And that's why the Pope's birthday, as in first omen, right? The birth of the Antichrist, which, by the way, I read the plot of this. It takes place in Rome. The birth of the Antichrist in Rome. It involves Catholicism, of course. That's very interesting, given that we're connected to the birth date of this Antichrist here, one of the two. We're talking about the birth dates of the Antichrist, because we've already talked about briefly the birth of this Antichrist, the birth date. Okay, so this is 7 months and 29 days, which hints at the number 729, which is equal to 9 times 9 times 9. The most important number in God's big picture of signs is the number 9, is from the Bible. It symbolizes God's judgment. This is why it's 9 plus 9 plus 9, symbolically to the 90-foot monkey man statue, which is 4 weeks and 5 days, which is 45, which is the 9th triangular number. Also 4 plus 5 equals 9. Okay, this is also 9 months right here. This confirms, and this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses as confirmed to confirm the matter, as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination, and different than unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And so this is the second witness. This 9 months confirms this 9 plus 9 plus 9. Okay, it's also 5 months and 4 days, which hints at 45. Now, it's also, this connection, well, let's just go through this here. What happened on this date was on the Pope's birthday, where we had a prophetic sign, which was the lightning, because that's in the Bible, symbolic of the Antichrist. Jesus said he saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven. Lightning came from heaven, struck the statue of Peter in the home of the Antichrist. In Argentina, in the home state of Argentina, which is where Pope Francis presided over as a cardinal as a bishop before he became a pope. Okay, so he's from this place, and that's where this statue was, this Peter statue. Peter's symbolic of the Catholic Church claims that the popes are descendants of Peter, but the lightning struck the statue and it knocked the halo behind Peter's head right off. And speaking of lightning, right now as I'm recording this very second, and there hasn't been any lightning today before this moment, lightning just struck. Lightning just struck outside my room here, and maybe you heard the thunder in the microphone, maybe not though, maybe the microphone didn't pick that up. But there was thunder and lightning, or there's another lightning strike just now. So I'm speaking about lightning and this prophetic sign here, and lightning is happening as I'm speaking. And it hadn't happened before now. Okay, so this lightning struck the statue, which knocked the halo from behind Peter's head off, which was symbolic of the Pope not being a righteous man. Also, the lightning struck the right hand of the Pope, the statue of Peter, and melted the hand right off. The hand was holding the key. That's because the Vatican is what's being described in Revelation chapter 9 with the key opening the bottomless pit. Because Catholicism isn't the Bible, it isn't a legitimate denomination of Christianity. God absolutely hates Catholicism, which is pagan religion wrapped in mixed with Christianity and the Bible as a form of deception and a form of the wolf in sheep's clothing. That's not to say that no Catholics will be saved. If they are, though, it will be in spite of their Catholicism, not because of it. And anyway, the Vatican is symbolized, God absolutely hates the Vatican. The Vatican is symbolized by keys, and it is the key that opens the bottomless pit. And that's because the Antichrist will open the bottomless pit, and the demons will come out. Now, what that is an allegory for is when demons pretend to be aliens and the Pope announces that aliens have arrived and have made him the ambassador for the world. And it is judgment for those that believe in the possibility of aliens, because obviously if they're a Christian, they wouldn't believe such a thing, and therefore if they do believe such a thing, that aliens are possible, they aren't actually Christians, because God became a man and died for the sins of men. He didn't hopscotch around the universe becoming aliens and die on other planets for the sins of aliens on other planets, etc. The center of God's creation is man. That's the biblical worldview, and one doesn't have a biblical worldview if they believe in aliens. And as 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 describes, we get the deception we ask for. The world is asking for the deception of aliens pretending to be demons. And so that's why, and the Pope will lead that. And so anyway, there you have it. Also, this was the day. Oh, and the point here is that December 17th wasn't only the Pope's birthday. It was the day that the Vatican was announcing the acceptance of homosexual unions. Okay? And 5 months is prophetic in the Bible. The flood lasted for exactly 5 months. Exactly 5 months later, we get May 17th, 2024, and another major announcement by the Vatican. In other words, these are the two major announcements, and they are coincidentally exactly 5 months apart, because it isn't a coincidence, it's designed by God. And on that day was the announcement that only the Vatican, only the Pope has the authority to confirm and declare supernatural phenomena. For example, apparitions of Mary and other things that are coming, like, for example, demons pretending to be aliens, etc. Okay, and all Mary ghosts in history have been demons pretending to be Mary. All you need to do is have a biblical understanding, or have a basic understanding of the gospel, which most Catholics don't have because they don't read the Bible, for one thing. And if they do, they're brainwashed by the Catholic propaganda. But everything that the Mary ghosts have said are clearly, obviously contradictory to the gospel. It's wicked deception, and for those who believe it, for those that worship Mary, which is pagan religion. It's inherited from the pagan worship of the fertility goddess, Ishtar, Aphrodite, Isis, etc. Okay, so then we have the 4 months here, which is also 2 plus 2 months, and the number 22 in God's signs is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist, because in Ezekiel, the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist would have been a Tav mark, the last letter and 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and the mark of the Antichrist is described in the last book and the 22nd out of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. And so this together, though, gives us 9 months, but also, and the number 9 months, Jesus, when his disciples asked for the signs of his return, Jesus replied with a metaphor of birth pains, and the average human gestation period is 9 months. And so also it's int at 45, okay, as I explained. So we have this now explained here. Let's go down here to what's going on here, which is this Lebanon sign, because we had the explosion of the pagers in Lebanon. And and the 4.5 I forgot to mark here was the 4.8 magnitude earthquake in Lebanon, which hit the 48th president, but it was in Lebanon, New Jersey, and that shook the downtown streets of New Jersey. That was also on the date 4.5 here. And that connects with 45% of the year from the date 4.5 to the exploding pagers in Lebanon. Now, this 4 years and 44 months also gets us back to this explosion in Lebanon, which was the fertilizer silo storage facility that exploded in the harbor of Beirut. There's so much more to say to that. I've explained it in other videos, and I don't have time to refresh my memory of the prophetic significance of all this. But in God's signs, God pairs the numbers 9 and 44 together, as the 44th president became the president in 09. That's why, for example, here it is exactly 9 plus 9 plus 9 months, years prior to this explosion on the Antichrist 44th president's birthday to this date here, when was the famous or infamous brawl, one of the biggest brawls, one of the most, probably the most infamous brawl in baseball history, bench clearing brawl, when the teams of the Dallas baseball team and the Chicago baseball team emptied into the field and started fighting each other. This was instigated when player number 23 charged the mound of the strikeout king, which hints at the Antichrist king who wore jersey number 23 in high school. This player, 23, was from Chicago, and so is the Antichrist from Chicago. Furthermore, Michael Jordan wore number 23 in Chicago, and that's also why, because it's pointing to Barack Obama, who also played basketball and is from Chicago. Now, the name Nolan Ryan in Irish means noble king, and that's God uses pictures on the pitching mound to symbolize the Antichrist on the Temple Mount in Bible prophecy. And so that's why this player, number 23, charged the mound. But it was Chicago versus Dallas. Dallas in God's sign is symbolic of the church. Chicago is symbolic of the Antichrist. This is symbolic of the civil war between the left and the right, the conservatives and the unrighteous, the Democrats and the evil Democrats. And so that's why this civil war brawl here. And it's also pointing to the coming politicized genocide of the left of the right. Just like the Rwanda genocide, which also happened in this time frame, and it's all connected, and I don't have time to refresh my memory on how that all connects. And so anyway, that gets us back here. Now, so this Lebanon explosion is exactly 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 months. God repeats the number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. We have a 44 and a 44 and 44, basically, from this date to this date here, August 4th, 2022, also Barack Obama's birthday. When I explained earlier, the lightning struck the people outside the White House. It was a couple that had just been married, so 2, and then a third person, 3, so 23, which is the Antichrist who wore jersey number 23, and was in the White House. Now, this was the day that monkeypox was declared a national health emergency. I predicted this 7 days ahead of time. I said on July 28th, which is not marked in this diagram, unfortunately, that I said, and I documented that in videos, that 7 days later on August 4th would be the day of the Biden declaring a national health emergency for monkeypox. That's because I also predicted July 28th, 2022 ahead of time. I predicted this date since April 10th, 2022. 110 days ahead of time, I predicted that on July 28th, 2022 would be a symbolic beginning to a new pandemic. This was before monkeypox. I hadn't even heard of monkeypox. Neither had most people. It wasn't in the news. It wasn't a thing back on April 10th, 2022. All I knew is that there would be a symbolic beginning to a new pandemic. And then on September 28th, 2022, that's exactly what happened. The first city, the first major city in America, and the first state, San Francisco and New York State, declared health emergencies for monkeypox. Okay, I predicted that in advance. How did I know that? Well, on April 9th, which I also knew ahead of time to be a significant thing, and I also thought that it would be the day of the new pandemic, ahead of time because of this connection, which I'll explain in a second. But on April 9th, 2022, vandalism, the spiritual enemy of Islam, vandalized the tomb of Joseph in the West Bank. Joseph died at the age of 110. This was known, this April 9th date was known in advance because of this 110 weeks connection. And so I figured 110 days later would be it. And then I had other things to confirm the analysis, other connections. And so that's how I knew July 28th, 2022. Okay, well, also on this day, on April 9th, 2022, Boris Johnson walked the empty streets of Kiev with the 44-year-old leader of Ukraine that God is using as Antichrist symbolism, the first Jewish leader of Ukraine, who was 44 for the entire first year of the war, because he had just turned 44 right before the war began. And at the beginning of the war, Ukraine was made up of 44 million people. God is using this man, the first Jewish leader, to hint at the first black president, the first affirmative action president, who was the 44th president. Now, Boris Johnson, in 2020, went into the hospital, into intensive care, 10 days after he tested positive, and that was when 10,000 people were affirmed to have COVID, the CVD disease, after having tested. And the question was on that day, who would be controlling 10 Downing Street? And so this 10 days of after having tested positive was all about the 10 days of testing of a Christian's faith described in Revelation chapter 2. Now, Boris Johnson, well, that gets into something else too, because this was the day of the video posted of Brother Philip and his 10 cities in 10 days video, which he explained in that video. And that was a sign of Jonah and John the Baptist. That's why Boris Johnson and these 10s. Oh, all right, that's enough there. But the point is that this was all about the CVD disease and the thing, the pointy thing, the mark of the Antichrist. And that's why on this date here, Boris Johnson was walking the empty streets, because the 10 cities in 10 days, Brother Philip's video, was all about him traveling across the nation at the height of the lockdowns in the empty streets of the downtown cities, 10 cities in 10 days. That's why Boris Johnson walked the empty streets of Kiev with the 44-year-old leader of Ukraine. It's amazing. So that was 110 weeks exactly after this date, which was one of the official symbolic starting days of the CVD disease, because this was when God's trumpet that he uses to trumpet and highlight his prophetic signs, trumpeted the first cases. And it was 22 cases, and this was trumpeted at 2 p.m. That's because it's 2:22 here, and the number 22, as I mentioned, symbolizes the mark of the Antichrist. Now, so it's 110 weeks to the day of the vandalism of Joseph's tomb, and Joseph died at the age of 110. And there's more to that, but that's enough. So that's giving you some background here to Boris Johnson. Now, this gets us up to here, which is also a Boris Johnson sign. This was the day that he resigned, on the date 7/7. This was exactly, I think it was 4 times 4 years after, 2022, and it was 5. I think it was actually 17 years, which is the 7th prime number, which is more confirmation for the 7/7. And in God's signs, God uses 3 sets of 7 because of the symbolic 3 sets of 7 that the Israelites enacted when they marched around the walls of security of Jericho before the walls of security collapsed, and they were led by Joshua, who died at the age of 110. And what I'm talking about 17 years earlier exactly was the the London bombings. Okay, the big event, the London bombings, the London 9/11. And so 17 years exactly, because it was 2005, and so it was 2000, so it's 17 years, seventh prime number, it gets us to the date 7/7, and it's a sign involving the Prime Minister of the UK in London, in front of 10 Downing Street, come to think of it too, because his prior sign was all about 10 Downing Street, because who would be controlling while he's in the intensive care, right? Well, that's all about the disease, and what we had on this day was the announcement by the Biden-Harris administration of 144,000 more monkeypox things, in pointy things, okay? 144,000 is an extremely prophetic number in the book of Revelation. All right, and that's, okay, so, and Boris Johnson is all about the symbolism for this thing because of the Boris Johnson intensive care sign that I just explained. Now, this is the 3 sets of 7 because it was exactly 17 years, the seventh prime number to this date 7/7, but it is also 7 plus 7 plus 7 days to the date of July 28th, which was the day of another UK sign, which was the day of the opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, which involved a large fire-shooting mechanical bull, which is completely pagan. This is the symbol of paganism in the Bible, the bull, the golden calf at the foot of the Mount Sinai, the rebellion against God. And this was a opening ceremony sign. It's symbolic of the beginning of the Antichrist system, the Antichrist period. And in the Bible, in Bible prophecy, the number 2520 is symbolic of the period of the Antichrist. That's why from this amazing July 28th day, again, the date that I knew ahead of time and knew to be the beginning of a symbolic beginning of a new pandemic, it was known ahead of time on this day. And this was also the day of the opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Games involving the bull, which is a prophetic sign. And it's 25 months and 20 days to this date here, this P. Diddy sign we were talking about, which is all about the things because of the connections that I'm talking about to monkeypox with P. Diddy that I've already explained. And the things because of Matthew Perry and things like that and Martin Sheen. You follow me? You getting this? July 28th was also the second day, was a day of epic flooding in St. Louis. Kamala Harris is predicted to die in a plane crash in St. Louis, and actually the flooding was in the part of St. Louis, the downtown part, where the Gateway Arch is, because in the Bible, judgment on a people or a nation symbolically begins at the gate, and that's why she'll crash at the Gateway Arch. And anyway, that's where the flooding was on July 28th. That's why the 7 days. That's why I knew 7 days, because of this flooding here. This wasn't the only flooding. There was other floodings in the other states. And on the day that the other New York State and the San Francisco declared monkeypox to be a health emergency, that I knew ahead of time would happen. Anyway, in the Bible, the flood began after a 7-day warning. And that's why I knew 7 days later it would be the day that the White House would declare that monkeypox is a health emergency, and that's exactly what happened. And so that's why this 25 months and 20 days, it hints at the number 2520, which is symbolic of the period of the Antichrist. And that's why we had the Antichrist beginning sign of the UK sign, which was 7 plus 7 plus 7 days after the Boris Johnson UK sign, which tied into the monkeypox because of the announcement of the additional 144,000 things. Now, this date here, this 7/7 date, and the announcement of the monkeypox things is exactly 220.00% of a year to this P. Diddy sign and the monkeypox signs connections we're talking about. That obviously hints at the number 22, as I explained, is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist, the thing, the things, the pointy things. Okay, quick confirmation here. It was exactly 444 days to this date when Harris was in High Point, North Carolina, promoting at an electric bus company, promoting her and Biden's infrastructure package for $2.3 trillion. That hints at the number 23, and God pairs the number 23 and 44 together to confirm the signs and connections, because the 44th president was the basketball president who wore jersey number 23 in high school. And that was the first day of the helicopter flying on Mars, the first flight outside of Earth. And helicopters God uses in his signs because they are symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist, because of the X of the rotor blades. God is using X's in his signs to symbolize the mark of the Antichrist. And that's because a pair of chromosomes is an X, and the mark of the Antichrist changes a person's chromosomes. And that's why the first flight on this day, and why it connects to the monkeypox things, okay? The mark of the Antichrist, which is the thing. Okay, and okay. Now, there's more to all of this. High Point, because it symbolizes Bama. The name Bama in Hebrew means high place, High Point, North Carolina. Electric bus company, it's lightning. Barack Obama means lightning from heaven. Lightning from high place, actually. And so Jesus said in Luke 10:18 that he saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven, and the name Barack Obama in Hebrew means lightning from heaven. Barack means lightning in Hebrew, and Bama means high place, which is in the Bible a metaphor for heaven. As for example, Lucifer fell from the high place. Also in the Bible, the high place is a metaphor for, or a euphemism for, the false religious worship that the Jews would do on tops of mountains. And so the name Barack Obama means lightning from heaven. Either Jesus didn't know what he was saying when he said this, or he knew that there would be a famous president named Barack Obama and said this anyway, knowing that it would confuse us, or he revealed the identity of the Antichrist. Obviously, the latter option is the only one that makes any sense. Now, this date here, April 19th, 2021, is exactly 28 years after this event in the 28th state, which was the Waco, Texas massacre, the burning of the compound, and the invasion. This was the day that, for the first time since the Revolutionary War, that the state attacked its own citizens. Okay? And that's because that's what's coming with the Antichrist and the Antichrist system. The state will be attacking its own citizens using the military. I should say this was the first time that the military attacked its own citizens. There's more to, obviously, Waco. I can't get into it in this video. It's a massive story. It'd take 2 hours to really explain it. If you don't know the truth about Waco, you don't know the truth. Because the mainstream media narrative isn't the truth. It's very easy to find, though. You just need to watch, for example, the testimonies in Congress. It's not like an elaborate, obscure conspiracy theory. It's all out there, just like the truth is for many things. But most people don't know the truth about Waco and how it was evil and all a lie. The lie of the media, just like, as I was saying, the movie Running Man. The movie Running Man, actually, with the lies and about the truth about what happened, so it's all a parallel. Waco is a foreshadow of what's coming, and it involves the lies from the media. That's the thing about Waco. It's all a lie in the media. And it's a persecution of a religious minority. That's the symbolism here too. And so that's what's coming. Bible prophecy talks about this, the persecution of God's faithful. And that won't mean that it's the non-Christians versus Christians. No. Quote-unquote Christians will be also part of the system that takes down and persecutes and chases and runs after the true Christians. Okay? As has been already happening, for that matter, because there are plenty of people that are, quote-unquote, call themselves Christians that have already been doing this. It's just going to get much worse. Okay. So, now the thing too here about this Lebanon pagers thing, this is the huge thing here. This is the, hopefully you made it this far, because if you didn't, you're going to miss the big thing. Okay, so what happened was somehow the Israeli military, the Israeli defense somehow supplied the terrorists in Lebanon with these pagers and put into them small pencil eraser-sized explosives that were somehow programmed to detonate after the owner of the pager would press a couple of buttons. And they would be pressing these buttons to stop the pager from buzzing. So they programmed the pagers to all buzz. They sent out the signal to buzz the pagers. And you had to do something with the pager to stop it from buzzing, which then triggered the explosions. I don't know how any more details than that, but that's how it happened. But this is all symbolism. Oh, and the reason why the terrorists decided to use pagers is that they thought that the Israeli government could track them with their cell phones. And this is all symbolism for the coming tracking of true Christians on their cell phones, the dissidents, and coming after them and seeking them, like, as they call them today even, domestic terrorists. That's what the media has been propagandizing people to think of these dissidents as domestic terrorists. This is where it's all headed very soon. And so that's what's being communicated here through God's signs here with the explosion of these pagers on the day of P. Diddy's indictment. Okay? It's communicating the tracking of these people, the dissidents, the domestic terrorists. Okay? Now also, the communication of the phone, this was a signal that was sent to the pagers. And that is because those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist will be sent a signal through 5G frequencies that will trigger the components that are inside them that were delivered through the thing that will induce mass demonic possession. It will trigger delta brainwave frequencies in the brain, which will facilitate demonic possession of these people. It will be a zombie pandemic. This is also what's described in Bible prophecy. These people will seek death and will not find it. That's a zombie, as it says in Bible prophecy. But as the Bible says, Satan is the prince of the power of the air, and that's why this will all happen through frequencies through the air. It's also, by the way, why Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash. It's because of the prince of the power of the air. Now, this is also alluded to with P. Diddy's video, because as I mentioned earlier, the opening of the video involves Danny DeVito as a journalist for Chase TV talking about how P. Diddy's character was contestant number 5 and had been running for 5 seasons. It's all a hint at 5G frequencies and mass demonic possession, which is described in the 5th trumpet judgment in the book of Revelation, which is in chapter 9, which is hinted at with the number 45, because 45 is the 9th triangular number. In a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 9th row is 45. Also, 4 plus 5 is equal to 9. 45 is a multiple of 9 also. And so Revelation chapter 9 is being pointed to, and it all involves this coming mass demonic possession, the mark of the Antichrist, which is the pointy thing. Monkeypox is a part of this, but people have already taken the mark of the Antichrist for the CVD disease. And what's coming is the 5G frequencies that will be sent, these people will be sent the signals for this, which is why we have the prophetic significance of the signals being sent to the pagers to trigger, activate the explosive. The 5G frequencies will trigger, activate the components that are in the people after having taken the thing, that will trigger delta brainwaves and demonic possession. Okay, so there's more to this story here that needs to be told. Some more revelation regarding what God is communicating has come to light. Let's start with this. Danny DeVito is in the beginning of the Victory music video. This is very important. This Victory music video of P. Diddy's, it's even more important than I thought, and I already knew it was important. So Danny DeVito stars in the video, and the beginning of it, he is a journalist touting or saying with great emphasis that contestant number 5 had been in the show for 5 seasons. This might hint at the 5 plus 5 days. I think it does, actually, because as Danny DeVito is saying all of this, in the video, images are overlaid with P. Diddy escaping an explosion. And that's why it's relevant that 5 plus 5 days after these signs on September 17th is the date it is predicted that there will be an explosion in New York City with the dirty bombs. The Victory video is appropriate for this. Okay. Now, in the beginning of the Victory video, P. Diddy receives a message, "Get out," on his pager. That's the message on the pager. I believe I explained how this is amazing that this video begins with P. Diddy using a pager, given that the day that he was indicted was the day of the exploding pagers in Lebanon. I explained all that, right? But the message is so important. The pager says, "Get out." And that's when he gets out of the plane that he's in, and then it explodes. All right? Okay, so The date of the, so Jordan Peele is a famous comedian, actor, and director. And he made a movie, Get Out. I haven't seen it, but I've read about it on Wikipedia, and the accolades are high. The movie won and was nominated for many awards, and it's been said on Wikipedia that some say it's one of the best films of the 21st century, which I find extremely hard to believe, by the way. I think it's woke culture because he's black. I don't know this for sure, though, but just from reading the plot, it doesn't sound like a very interesting movie, if you ask me. I have a hard time believing that this movie is so great. I could be wrong, though. And also, it's a psychological thriller. When do psychological thrillers like this become the best movies ever or something? I don't know. Anyway, just, disregard my opinion there. It just sounds a little fishy to me. But if I am correct, it's also Spirit of Antichrist in itself. Okay, so anyway, this guy, Jordan Peele, made this movie, Get Out. And the movie also is about a black man and in a relationship with a white woman, which would be, I think, maybe why they would want to give him so many awards. Anyway, so the movie Get Out, though, is, as I'm going to explain, hinted at with the pager message that P. Diddy received, Get Out. So the movie came out 91 months and 3 days before the predicted explosions in New York City. And I just explained how that's relevant given the explosion in the P. Diddy video and the explosions of the pagers in Lebanon, all that, right? So 91 months and 3 days is relevant because it's a number that it hints at 913, which hints at the 913th word in Strong's Greek Concordance, which is the word Barak. Okay, so this, in other words, God uses in his signs 913 as symbolism to identify Barack Obama. Now, the date 927 also hints at the Antichrist because this is the verse, the Daniel chapter 9:27 verse is the verse in this most central prophecy in the Bible, Daniel chapter 9, that regards the period of the Antichrist, the 27th verse. In other words, God uses this pairing of 9 and 27 in his signs as symbolism for the Antichrist, which is why it would be relevant to have this connection that symbolizes Obama to this date, 927. Okay, now also Revelation 9:11 day. This is an astounding one here too, because as I was explaining, this signal that triggered the pagers to explode is hinting at the coming frequencies that will trigger mass demonic possession of those who have taken the pointy thing, and there will be a symbolic beginning to this, what I call Revelation 9:11 day. And that's why it's astounding that we have this 91 months and 10 days, which hints at 9/11 from the release of Get Out. Now, this context of Get Out isn't Get Out of New York City like this is, but this would be the rapture, because the day before will be the rapture. And so God's faithful will be getting out in time for this date, this symbolic beginning of the Antichrist period and the demonic realm colliding with the earthly realm and mass demonic possession, etc., demons pretending to be aliens, etc., etc. So that's why, and this, the passage Revelation 9:11 is symbolic of all of this, and that's why 91 months and 10 days to this Revelation 9:11 day. Okay, so that's amazing. That's confirmation of that what I'm explaining here is correct. Okay, Peele is 45. We already have explained in this video the significance of 45 and it being connected to P. Diddy for that matter. Right? Well, I don't need to explain it again. I explained it already. Peele started out, his breakout role was on the show Mad TV. This is clearly a designed hint from God to point to the madness and the demonic possession. That's symbolized by Revelation 9:11. The ninth chapter, the fifth trumpet in Revelation chapter 9:11 alludes to all of to the coming mass demonic possession, and that'll be triggered by the frequencies, the prince of the power of the air, the 5G frequencies. But that's why Peele got his start in Mad TV, and he is now 45 years old at the time that this is all relevant, given the connections to P. Diddy and the number 45. Mad TV was a show on Fox. Fox is symbolic of 666, the number of the Antichrist, Satan's representative. Because F is the sixth letter, O is the 15th letter, 1 plus 5 is 6, and X is the 24th letter of the alphabet, and 2 plus 4 is 6. So Mad TV on 666, this is clearly more confirmation. Oh, and the thing is, the movie Get Out is about possession. I should have mentioned that beforehand. The movie Get Out that we are talking about here with these connections to Revelation 9:11 day, the release of the movie, that's because this movie is about possession. It's a strange concept. It's a high concept movie. And anyway, that's what the movie is about. It's about people possessing people. And that's because it's symbolism for what we are talking about here with the coming mass demonic possession that will be that for which there will be a symbolic beginning on October 4th. By the way, October 4th hints at Revelation 10, verse 4, and the seven thunders, if you care to look that up. Okay, so Get Out was shot in 23 days in Fairhope, in the 22nd state. This confirms the 903 Obama connections, 913 I should say, which is symbolic of Obama. Fairhope hints at Obama. His big slogan in his election campaign was hope. Okay, and 23 is the number that God uses to symbolize Obama, the basketball president who wore jersey number 23. Also, 2 divided by 3 is 0.666, the number of the Antichrist. But also, the movie was shot in 23 days. That's because the SHOTs are symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist. The things that come out of guns and go into people are symbolic of the things that come out of things and go into people. And the things that come out of things and go into people changes a person's chromosomes, and there are 23 pairs of them. That's another reason why the number 23 is symbolic of Obama, who is the Antichrist. Okay, now God pairs, 23 is the ninth prime number, 45 is the ninth triangular number. The movie cost $4.5 million. I explained earlier how Apocalypse Now cost $45 million. Get Out cost $4.5 million, which is a confirmation because it was shot in 23 days, and that's the ninth prime and ninth triangular numbers for you. Okay, but also, it won awards at the 90th Academy Awards because 45 is the ninth triangular, 23 is the ninth prime, and the movie was celebrated at the 90th Academy Awards. That's astounding. Furthermore, God pairs the numbers 9 and 23 frequently in his signs to confirm the signs and connections, because the basketball president who wore 23 became president in 2009. It was also, it was nominated for 2+3 awards at the 23rd Critics' Choice Awards. But that's a total of 5, and this is a hint at 5G. as well. Because again, this movie is about possession. And see, I didn't know that until I got down here. I was always speculating that this nomination for 5 awards at the prophetic 23rd Critics' Choice Awards in the same year as the 90th pairing of 9 and 23 again, Academy Awards, this number 5 means something because it's the 23rd Critics' Choice Awards, and I know God's signs from having studied it from morning until night for more than full-time hours for 2 times 3 years. I know by now that, if we're talking about a 23rd Critics' Choice Awards and this this movie being celebrated like it is, then therefore this number 5 is relevant. But I didn't know when I wrote this that the movie, in fact, the plot of it is about possession. I was just starting to read on Wikipedia about the movie, and I hadn't read the plot of the movie yet. All right, now, and so it connects with the 9/11 number to Revelation 9/11 day, which is again the symbolic beginning of the coming mass demonic possession that will be facilitated through 5G frequencies and is alluded to in the 5th trumpet in the judgments in the book of Revelation. Okay, so Get Out was nominated for 4 awards at the 90th Academy Awards and nominated for 5 awards at the 23rd Critics' Choice Awards. That's a clear 45. It's also a total of 9 nominations, but that's a 45 for you because God pairs 23 and 9 together to confirm his signs and connections. And so when we pair the 90th and 23rd Critics' Choice Awards and the 90th Academy Awards, we get a 4 and a 5, which gives us 45, and it cost $4.5 million. This ties it all to P. Diddy as well. All right, in addition to the second coming, 45, and the reciprocal of 45 is 0.22, hints at the mark of the Antichrist because the number 22 is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist. Right? If I didn't explain it already, the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist is described in the book of Ezekiel, and the mark of and that would have been a Tav mark, the last, and the Tav letter is the last and 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and the mark of the Antichrist is described in the last book of the Bible, the 22nd out of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. Okay, and so it is also the 9th triangular number, and that's symbolic of judgment because the number 9 is the most important number in God's signs. It's from the Bible. It symbolizes God's judgment. And so 45 isn't only a symbol because of its reciprocal symbolism for the second coming, but it is also symbolism for the mark of the Antichrist. The 5 nominations at the 23rd Academy Award, Critics' Choice Awards hints at the 5th trumpet in Revelation 9. Pager signals are frequencies, which makes all of this point to 5G frequencies. The frequency bands of 5G begin at the 450 megahertz level, and that's what 45 hints at as well. In other words, 5G is symbolized by 45 because the first level of frequencies is the 450 megahertz level. So when we're talking about the number 45 symbolizing the mark of the Antichrist because of its reciprocal, we're also talking about 5G frequencies. That's hinted at with the number 45. We've already explained how P. Diddy and the explosions of the pagers triggered by frequencies is all tied to this. And now we can see here, because it was just learned, that the number that symbolizes 5G frequencies, its symbolic beginning frequency level, is the 450 megahertz level. And the first level goes up to 2 times 3 gigahertz. That's another 23 and 45 for you, by the way. So this director, producer, Jordan Peele, has made 3 movies. And they all are prophetic, the names: Get Out, Us, and Nope. Get Out means get out. It means also get out of the U.S., not only get out of Manhattan where the bombs are going to explode on the 27th. And Nope is a play on hope, Barack Obama. God is saying no hope. There is no hope for America, which is why it needs to be destroyed now. That's why God is saying, get out of the U.S., because there is no hope. And that's why the Antichrist and his slogan, hope. Okay, so I think I've gone through it now. That's what I needed to add here. All right. It turns out that the Lord was by no means finished here. There is a lot more, and it's extremely interesting and very important. We are talking about the signs that occurred on September 17th, just a refresher here. We were talking about the indictment of P. Diddy, for example. September 17th was the 22nd anniversary. And by the way, again, we are talking about the connections from P. Diddy pointing to things, pointy things. Again, P. Diddy was indicted for sex parties with drugs, and I just have explained already how it's all connecting to the mark of the Antichrist and the pointy things. Okay, and so again, I think I've mentioned it probably. The number 22 in God's signs is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist. The inverse of the mark of the Antichrist in Ezekiel, in the Bible, in the book of Ezekiel, would have been a Tav mark, and the Tav letter is the last and 22nd letter in the Hebrew alphabet. The mark of the Antichrist is described in the last book of the Bible, the 22nd out of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. So the mark of the Antichrist is symbolized by the number 22. Furthermore, the mark of the Antichrist changes a person's chromosomes. A pair of chromosomes, or rather one chromosome, is made up of 2 arms. A pair of chromosomes is therefore made up of 4 arms. Right? Okay, so that's also, by the way, why the Lord uses an X as in his signs for symbolism for the mark of the Antichrist. In an X, there are 4 lines that meet each other in the middle, if you will. 2 plus 2. Well, anyway. So, September 17th was the 22nd anniversary. Well, first of all, the date, as I explained earlier, September 17th, is Constitution Day. And the Antichrist is the unconstitutional president. Who will become the president again and serve a second presidency. Okay? And that president was president from 2009 until 2017, which is why God designed that Constitution Day be the date 9/17. To point to the unconstitutional president and identify the Antichrist. So this 9/17 date in 2024, with all of these signs that I've explained so far regarding the mark of the Antichrist, ultimately, and the number 22 symbolizes the mark of the Antichrist, this 9/17 date in 2024 is exactly 22 years after President Bush's infamous "fool me twice" gaffe. So I'm just going to play a clip to refresh your memory regarding this prophetic sign, as we now know. This "fool me twice" gaffe, 22 years exactly earlier. President Bush made his "fool me twice" gaffe exactly 22 years earlier on the date 9/17 in 2002.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, "Fool me once, shame on you." If fool me, we can't get fooled again. There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled.
All right. Now, as you just saw, a part of this gaffe is President Bush mentioning where he is, Tennessee. This is important. There is a reason this is designed by God. It is because God uses this, the state of Tennessee, in his signs. One reason is that it is the 4 times 4th state to join the Union, the 16th state to join the Union, and God uses 16 because it is 4 times 4 to hint at the 44th president. And so way back then, when President Bush made this gaffe, God was communicating, revealing the identity of the Antichrist. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. So this is a prophetic sign that communicates how the masses were fooled into electing the first affirmative action president, Barack Obama, the 44th president, the unconstitutional president. That's why people were fooled. And they were fooled because they wanted to be fooled. I need to make that very, very clear. It is spiritual, and these people wanted to be fooled. They love lies. They are followers of Satan. That's the biblical worldview. Satan is the ruler of this world, and until one is liberated through Christ, they are of Satan, and that's why they love the lies of Satan. And Satan is in the process of manifesting the Antichrist kingdom. And so these people are falling in line because they love it. Spiritually, they don't know what's going on. They're fools, but they love it. The media never vetted this guy, Barack Obama. His whole rise was all affirmative action the whole way. Him even getting into Harvard, him being elected the president of the Law magazine, all of that was nonsense. He never wrote one article. If you know the story of Barack Obama, he is one big lie. And he is a radical communist. That's where he comes from, his background. Bill Ayers got him into Harvard, and Bill Ayers is the radical communist. They're buddies way back when. From when Barack Obama, even before Barack Obama met Bill Ayers, he was a fan. It was like for him meeting the Beatles. They met when Barack Obama was at Columbia University. Anyway, I'm not going to get into more of the history. You need to watch, actually, the documentary Dreams from My Real Father. That's the name of the documentary. Highly, highly recommended. The person that put that together is brilliant, and that's because he has a solid worldview as well. He was able to understand. Anyway, the truth is that Barack Obama has this past, and he has fooled the masses. The reason why he got into politics in the first place was to subvert the American system. This was what communists want to do. They hate America. They want to bring it down. That's the communist ideology isn't coherent. It's just filled with hate. That's the truth. And Barack Obama has a bad past. He was abandoned by, he wasn't only abandoned by his father. Well, okay, so Dreams from My Real Father. You need to watch the documentary. But the truth is, Barack Obama's real father is Frank Marshall Davis. And Barack Obama knows this. Bill Ayers and him concocted the book, the autobiography, which Bill Ayers has said he wrote. And that's not a conspiracy theory. You can find video of him saying that. Bill Ayers concocted this whole multicultural angle for Barack Obama because they knew that he wouldn't get far if he was just a regular African American. Okay, so they went with the Barack Obama story, but the Barack Obama story dates back to his mother getting knocked up at the age of 18 by Frank Marshall Davis. Barack Obama's grandfather, his mother's father, was an FBI agent assigned to Hawaii to monitor the communist activities led by Frank Marshall Davis. That's how his daughter and Frank Marshall Davis's paths crossed. And so to protect his job, at the time, there was Barack Obama Sr. having been brought in as a student from Kenya as part of a CIA program. I think the grandfather worked for the CIA, not the FBI. It was part of a CIA program to combat the growing communist movement in Kenya, to bring in these Kenyan students into the U.S. And Barack Obama Sr. was part of this program, and that's how Barack Obama's grandfather got the idea to use him, Barack Obama Sr., as a reason for how to explain how Anne Stanley Dunham, Barack Obama's mother, got pregnant. And they had a fake marriage, and the deal for Barack Obama Sr. was that in exchange he would be able to complete his doctorate in the U.S., which is why the two never were together. Barack Obama Sr., while he was studying to get his doctorate, was never living with Barack Obama's mother. They weren't really married. But to fool immigration, they had the birth in Kenya. That made it look real. That's why Barack Obama was, in fact, born in Kenya. Okay? So Barack Obama went with all of this, with Bill Ayers. The truth is, though, Barack Obama did have a relationship with Frank Marshall Davis as an adolescent. Frank Marshall Davis was Barack Obama's mentor. Frank Marshall Davis was a radical communist. Frank Marshall Davis was from Chicago, which is why after the May 19th Communist Organization was disbanded, which Barack Obama was a member of in 1985, Barack Obama moved to Chicago in 85 to follow in his father's footsteps and begin his street activism in Chicago, which is what communists do. So that's a little bit of background for Barack Obama there for you. So anyway, the point is that he has fooled the masses. He is the Trojan horse. He is communism. He, while president, installed all kinds of bad communist red diaper babies. Okay? Baby boomers that were children of the communists from the 1930s. There's all kinds of... So Barack Obama laid the groundwork for what we are going through right now. He installed in positions of power and in these agencies, these communists. And we are now in a coup. Currently there is a coup unfolding. It's a slow coup. It's unfolding over the past few years. It's a totalitarian takeover. Okay? And so Barack Obama fooled the masses that were naive and had no wisdom, because as the Bible says, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. America departed from God, especially the left and the Democrat Party, and now there is no wisdom. They are like immature little sheep that don't know where they're going. And they were ripe for Satan's takeover and the destruction of the nation, which is designed by God because the nation has departed God. And so Satan is being allowed to take over. And that takeover has happened because the people are fools. People on the left are complete fools. Joseph Stalin even said that Democrats, the left, the liberals are useful idiots. Those are his words. Because he knew that it ultimately leads to communism. And so America has lost its values after having lost its foundation, the values from the Bible. It has lost all of that, and now it has no wisdom, and it was susceptible, is what I'm describing here, to this being fooled by Barack Obama, but really being fooled by Satan. The book, by the way, Dreams from My Father, in it, Barack Obama describes a dream that he had while traveling as a young adult to Kenya as part of this propaganda for the book that him and Bill Ayers had concocted to get him to help his political career. He anyway went to Kenya and had a dream while he was traveling in Kenya, and that dream, although he doesn't know it, is a prophetic dream from God that reveals that he is the Antichrist. Okay, I'm not going to get into the dream, but so, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. So anyway, the point is that America is about to be fooled twice. Barack Obama will become again the unconstitutional president because the 25th Amendment will be used to appoint Barack Obama as the vice president. The Supreme Court will go along with this. It'll be from Satan. The Supreme Court is also compromised. The Chief Justice is compromised. The left, the communists have something on him, and he and I'm sure others will go along with this. Okay? And this will be how Barack Obama will overcome the 22nd Amendment, which restricts someone from being elected to the office more than twice. He will be appointed instead. This is also why the 22nd year connection here from the fool me twice gaffe. Also, this is also symbolism. God is communicating getting fooled twice regarding the mark of the Antichrist, the pointy things. There will be another round of it. That doesn't mean, though, that the first round wasn't the mark of the Antichrist. There's going to be another round of the mark of the Antichrist, though. And I assume, given what God has been communicating through his signs, it has to do with monkeypox. Okay? And there will be a promise of immortality. The first lie ever told in the Garden of Eden to Eve will become the last lie of the age. There will be a promise through these pointy things, this TRANS human technology of age reversal and immortality. And this will also be, in some way, a spiritual thing. There will be demons pretending to be aliens, and they will promote New Age spirituality, which the vast majority of people, not only in America, but the world have today. If you ask, polls show that really there are only 13% or so of the population in Western nations that are actually atheists. The vast majority aren't Christian, though. If you ask them, do they believe in God, they would say yes, but he is an energy. He is a collective consciousness. He is the universe itself. Never mind that science contradicts that, because we have a creation moment, we have the Big Bang, and on in terms of scientific evidence for intelligent design. They're not interested in that, though, because they love the lies. They do not want there to be a personal being God. They love the idea of an impersonal being God that they are a part of and in some way are God themselves, as the Eastern and New Age philosophy says. the demons pretending to be aliens will be promoting this. As 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 tells us, we get the deception that we ask for, right? Speaking of being fooled, the purpose of aliens in itself is a test of faith, because although the majority of quote-unquote Christians in polls indicate that they believe that it's possible that there are aliens, it means that they are in fact not Christians. And that's the point of this coming deception of demons pretending to be aliens. It's because of this. Because if one has a biblical worldview, man is the center of God's creation, and earth is the center of the universe. But importantly, God became a man, Jesus Christ, and died for the sins of man. And therefore didn't hopscotch around the universe, taking the form of other alien life forms and dying on crosses on other planets. That's absurd. Although there actually are Christian so-called quote-unquote theologians that are trying to defend such a theory. So anyway, that's what's coming. There will be a more fooling of the masses. Okay? Fool me twice is also an allusion to getting fooled a second time with the mark of the Antichrist. Okay? But it's also a second presidency and being fooled by Barack Obama. Now, there's more to say here. Also, by the way, Bush was the second President Bush. So from the second President Bush's prophetic sign here, which is his fool me twice gaffe, it is exactly 22 years. As I said, P. Diddy communicated illegal drugs. It connected to the ketamine things, pointy things, and demonic possession, which is ultimately what will happen to those who have taken the pointy thing through the Get Out text, as I mentioned, which brings us to the movie Get Out. The second presidency of Obama, who was president from 2009 to 17. Okay, that's why the 22 years in between these two 9/17 dates. Obama fooled the masses once and will fool many a second time. Twice, fool me twice. The masses were fooled with the pointy things once and will be fooled twice. Okay, that's what God is communicating here. Now, rather than write things up in a nice write-up, I'm just going to go through the thoughts that I wrote down to a friend of mine as they came, and it's amazing. So I wrote, I don't know if it's relevant, but now I do know that it is relevant. But the final out of the Washington W game on July 6th, President Bush's birthday, his 78th birthday, was pitched by player number 777, 7 plus 7 plus 7. And it was 73 days, which hints at 3 sets of 7, before 9/17 in 2024. It was a foul ball tip into the catcher's glove. The player who tipped the ball was number 63, which hints at 3 sixes, and 666, the number of the Antichrist. And he played for the Cardinals, which are birds. And this prophetic sign hinted at the coming bird strike of Kamala Harris's airplane as she is on her way back to Washington. Hence why the game was played in Washington with the Washington Nationals baseball team on George W.'s birthday. George W. Bush hints at George Washington. The team in baseball, when a team wins, they get a W in the column. They get a W, okay, a win in the record book. That's why this is a prophetic sign. There's so much more to all of this, and July 6th, that's explained in the absolute must-watch Jimmy Carter funeral video. The only video where I talk about the prophetic significance of Jimmy Carter's funeral, that video must be watched. All right, so I'm not going to get into much more regarding the significance of July 6th, 2024. I'm just saying, though, that God has communicated this connection because July 6th, 2024 was about George W., as explained in the other video. But it connects to this 22nd anniversary of George W. and his Fool Me Twice gaffe. Okay? Actually, I think the connection is valid. Pitchers on the pitching mound symbolize the Antichrist on the Temple Mount. The connection from the Bird strikeout connects to P. Diddy and his video Victory that begins with P. Diddy in the wreckage of a plane in the Steel City. Okay, again, the sign is the W, the win for the Washington Nationals. It's a victory, and it connects with 73 days to the signs on 9/17 that involve P. Diddy that point to his Victory music video. All right? And again, in that video, it begins with P. Diddy in the wreckage of a plane in a city street. The city streets where Harris's plane will crash after a bird strike will be in St. Louis, which is why in the game, it was the St. Louis Cardinals player number 63 that foul tipped the ball. By the way, a foul tip, in baseball, a foul is when the batter hits the ball, but it like tips the ball and doesn't go into play. Tips the ball into the crowd, into the stands or something. That's a foul. But God is using this as a play on words because birds are also fowls. And the game ended with a strikeout, but the last strike was a foul tip, meaning the batter tipped the ball and then it deflected into the catcher's glove, which recorded the out. Okay? Because when the ball is tipped by a batter and then caught, that batter is out. If the catcher hadn't caught the ball, the game would have still continued. So it was a foul tip that ended the game. But importantly, it was the St. Louis Cardinals, and this was the giveaway that this is a prophetic sign because Kamala Harris is predicted to die due to a bird strike in St. Louis. Not only that, though, her plane is predicted to crash into the baseball stadium in St. Louis. Okay. The player who struck out plays for St. Louis. The catcher who caught the foul tip, bird foul ball is player number 20. The number 20 would be how God would communicate the 44th president and his second presidency in one number, because 20, as in the number 2, is 4 times 4 plus 4. And God repeats the number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. So this hints at the second presidency for the 44th president. This W for Washington, like I was explaining, the victory, the W, was on George W.'s birthday. And again, George W. hints at George Washington. It was his 78th birthday, and 7 times 8 equals 56, which is 7 plus 7 times 7, 3 sets of 7. God uses this. For example, it was 56 passengers on the second plane on 9/11 because the tower that collapsed was 110 stories, and Joshua, who led the Israelites, died at the age of 110, and they marched around the walls of security, symbolic 3 sets of 7 before they collapsed in God's judgment. Okay. Which may confirm the pitcher's number 7 plus 7 plus 7. Oh, and the W was the victory, okay? Like I was saying, points to the music video Victory. That is the point. The sign was the W, which stands for win or victory. And this connects to P. Diddy's Victory video. The pitcher's number could have been 73, but 21 equals 7 plus 7 plus 7. And this connects with 73 days to 9/17. This confirms it. Oh, and so here's the thing. George Washington, God has been pointing to in his signs, including the events of 9/11. And George Washington was born on the date 2/22. So that's why we have the 22 years connection from the George W., as in George Washington, sign. From the Fool Me Twice sign, which is a 2, We have 22 years, as in 2/22, the date that George Washington was born. That's why, for example, exactly 222 months after 9/11 was the day, March 11th, 2020, when the World Health Organization officially declared the CVD disease to be a pandemic, and Trump delivered his Oval Office speech regarding the CVD disease, which ended precisely as the clock on the live TV news screen ticked 9/11. March 11th, 2020 was a date that I was predicting since November of 2019 to be the date of something very big, bad, and world-changing, and I wasn't saying that about any other date. And I knew this because of the 222 months connection. Because through the 9/11 events, God pointed to George Washington, because Lower Manhattan was the capital before Washington, D.C., and George Washington was inaugurated in Federal Hall on Wall Street, and afterwards marched down Wall Street, as in the walls of security that were marched around by the Israelites before they collapsed in God's judgment. Then George Washington went into Trinity Chapel, where he consecrated the nation to God, saying that if the nation were to ever turn away from God, it would lose its divine protection and blessings, which was what happened temporarily on 9/11. And the Trinity Chapel is now today known as the Miracle Chapel because it was the only building at Ground Zero that didn't suffer any damage, not even a broken window. Okay, and on and on. So that's why, or how, God pointed to George Washington through the 9/11 events, and George Washington was born on the date 2/22. And that's again why we have the 22 years from the fool me twice gaffe from George W., as in George Washington. Wow. Okay, so also on September 1st, 2019, which was a date that hinted at 9/11, it was player number 2 and number 22, and only these two players, who were lifted up for the Simba Cam, which is a play on the iconic scene from the movie The Lion King, in which baby Simba is lifted up for all to see. Fans in the stadium lift up their babies or pets for the camera, for the whole stadium to see. It's the Simba Cam. On the day of, and it was the same day as the flash flood in Hell's Gate Canyon National Park, the location that inspired the movie The Lion King, in southwest Kenya, which is actually also right near where Barack Obama was born. And so that is the point, because he is the Simba. That's where he was born. The movie The Lion King, about his birthplace, right? In fact, Barack Obama recognized this and used the clip from the movie in a joke at the White House press correspondents' dinner in 2011, which was a prophetic sign that also identified him as being born in Kenya. Long story. Well, anyway, this day, September 1st, 2019, we had these two Lion King signs because, again, the Simba Cam is from the Lion King, but also the place of the flash flood, Hell's Gate Canyon National Park, inspired the movie The Lion King. 7 people died. They were Christians, by the way, and this was the same day that the Pope was late for Mass by 7 minutes because he was stuck in an elevator due to the power outage going out. September 1st, 2019 was exactly 4 times 40 years after the Carrington event that knocked out the power in the telegraph communication system, and that's a hint at the coming knocking out of America's power grid due to the coming solar flare coronal mass ejection. And that's why, anyway, okay. So the voice of the Lion King delivered the speech by, the voice of the Lion King, James Earl Jones, read the poem about baseball being a homecoming right at the opening of the broadcast of Game 3 of the 1989 World Series. And right after that, the power was knocked out in the broadcast booth by the earthquake. And September 1st, 2019 was the 30th anniversary of the author of that poem, the 7th Commissioner of Baseball, and James Earl Jones was born 7 years and 77 days before that, before the birth of the author of the poem, before the birth of the 7th Commissioner of Baseball. And that's because of what I'm saying about the metaphor God is using, a lion's roar for the coming eruption on the sun that will knock out America's power grid. And the 7th Commissioner of Baseball, his death was 30 years exactly before this Lion King signs. And in the Bible, 30 years is symbolic of a king. All right. And the reason for pointing to the 7th Commissioner of Baseball also is because God is pointing to the 1st Commissioner of Baseball, who was given unchecked power in a moment of crisis because of the 1919 Chicago Black Sox World Series cheating scandal, which hints at Barack Obama from Chicago. And the power was given to the first commissioner of baseball, unchecked power over every person in baseball in a moment of crisis, 666 days after the ratification of the 6+6+6 amendment, which restricted people from buying and selling alcohol. This is because the Antichrist will be given unchecked power in a moment of crisis and will restrict people's ability to buy and sell food who have not taken the mark of the Antichrist. Okay. So, now back to the subject of this video. On 9/17/2024, the 200th home run hit by player number 22. This same player number 22 who previously played for the Washington Nationals, and the day when him, number 22 and number 2 were lifted up for the SymbaCam, which hinted at George Washington, who was born on the date 2/22. Okay, now God is using this same player again here years later when he hit the 200th home run, player number 22, okay? And he hit it against the Blue Jays, which hints at bird strike. Actually, he didn't hit it against the Blue Jays. This is an error. I'll explain in a second. Okay, but anyway, this confirms the connection to the foul tip by the Cardinals against Washington 73 days earlier, because they're both baseball signs, and this guy used to play for the Washington Nationals, and that's when the prophetic sign of that was the Washington Nationals year, the year of the SymbaCam. That's the year that they won the World Series. For the first time in 50 years in their franchise. 50 years is extremely prophetic in the Bible. And the franchise began in Montreal, which is French for Royal Mount, which hints at the Temple Mount. And pictures on the pitching mound are symbolic of the Antichrist on the Temple Mount in Bible prophecy. And the prophetic last out, which God uses, especially in World Series, is the final prophetic out was from pitcher number 44, as in the 44th president. And he pitched against player number 23, which is also the number that symbolizes the Antichrist, because 2 divided by 3 is 0.666, but also the Antichrist basketball president wore jersey number 23 in high school. And he played, the pitch was 88 miles per hour, which God is using to hint at the movie Back to the Future, which was a prophecy from God, because the plot of the movie is about a prophecy and predicting the future. And it was, in fact, a prophecy. If you watch the movie, it's clearly a prophecy predicting the events of 9/11. As explained in another video. Okay, so this player number 22 hit his 200th home run, okay? And so let me see. Let's just continue. Okay, so it wasn't against the Blue Jays. The 200th home run for player number 22 was hit in the 42nd state, the state of Washington. This was the 22nd anniversary of George W.'s Fool Me Twice gaffe. Okay, so the 200, and he played for Washington. He was assigned because of the Washington Nationals, right? So again, here we have the 200th home run for player number 22, and I've just been explaining the relevance of the 22nd anniversary of the Fool Me Twice gaffe for George W., and that's because George Washington was born on the date 2/22. Not only this, though, the 42nd state where he hit the home run is the state of Washington. Okay, but it was the 42nd home run, all right? Now, the Lord uses the number 42 in his signs because from Bible prophecy and in the Bible, the number 42 symbolizes slaughter. Every instance of the number 42 in the Bible is in context of slaughter. There were the 42... children that were slaughtered by the bear. There were the 42 that were slaughtered at the pit by King Jehu. And there were 42 cities that people could take refuge in if they had committed manslaughter. And in Bible prophecy, the Antichrist is associated with slaughter, and his number is the number 42, symbolizes the period of the Antichrist. So we are talking about the Antichrist, but of course this is also communicating that he will be in Washington, the seat of power. Now, also, what's significant about this that God did to highlight the fact that this home run was hit in the state of Washington, the 42nd state, is that with this home run, this player had achieved another milestone besides the 200th home run milestone. He also became he also, with this home run, had hit a home run in every baseball stadium in the major leagues, which was significant given that he's only 25 years old. Okay? All right. Okay. As I'm saying here, this is the Paul Simon sign we were looking for. No, that's a different one. That's something else. So the player had 3 milestones on this day with this home run. His 200th home run was also his 40th home run of the season. And with this, he became the player to hit in every baseball stadium a home run. All right. So the 200th home run for player number 22. Oh, and it was hit off of the home run was hit off of pitcher number 22 to top it all off. All right. So the more 222 there, right? George Washington, right? The pitcher for the team from the state of Washington was wearing number 22. You know what? I bet if we look back at that, the pitch count was probably 2-2, 2 balls, 2 strikes, probably 2 outs in the inning. I wouldn't be surprised at all. All right. Now, feel free to look that up if you like. But anyway, the fact that he hit for 3 milestones gives us a 2 and a 3, and 23. 2 divided by 3 is 0.666, which is the number of the Antichrist, which is identified through the number 23 as the basketball president who wore jersey 23 in high school. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, TrumpPrediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the BitChute.com or the Odyssey.com channel. And do it now in case you aren't able to later.